Our guest on this episode of the podcast is a Northeast native and grew up in a fishing family. He has decades of offshore fishing experience and is a master of the art of daytime sword fishing and deep drop tactics. His fishing career has taken him from the Bahamas to Nova Scotia, chasing tuna and billfish. He's a brand ambassador for Shimano, Ron Z, and owns his own company, Three Buoys Custom Tackle. He has written countless articles for some of the most well-known sport fishing publications, including Florida Sport Fishing and the Big Game Journal. His latest endeavor is offering all-inclusive bed and breakfast accommodations in Bristol, Rhode Island with his wife, where their guests can complete the New England sea-to-table experience. He was featured on the series One Boat Challenge on YouTube, where he and several other professional anglers were dropped on a lake in Mexico and all competed largemouth bass fishing, and he took home first place. Taylor and I had a lot of fun and learned a lot from this conversation. Ton of laughs. We nerded out about what types of tactics and innovative fishing methods we want to try in the canyons. The conversation was all over the map. It was a great time. Without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Captain Seth Funt. Welcome to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast, where we follow 3 words of wisdom. You can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last, you'll just have to keep listening. Stay tight.
Am I coming off or what? Get that down. Don't get on that.
Oh, man. It feels good to be talking about fishing. Oh. I've been going through all my shit the last few nights, finally. It's kind of weird how, not to get off on a side tangent already, but it's kind of weird.
There for you if anyone.
It's kind of weird how you don't want to post on social media anymore. At least I don't. I feel like we're on this big wave of being super consistent and this, that, and the other. Then you get to a point where you realize, is this helping or hurting me?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Or you run out of content.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we try to hold as much as we can until now.
Yeah.
Now it's posting. You got to post every day, to get the business and increase your account. So.
But it kind of gets stale where it's you've almost, you're thumbing through your pictures from seasons past and you're looking. You've already cherry picked all the good ones.
Yeah.
And now it's all the B-roll.
Right.
And
you're trying to make stuff out of.
Yeah.
Make something exciting.
I love putting together those videos.
He's all right. He's good.
Yeah,
where, you're just stitching together cool little pieces of your summer and then you look at it and you're like, this isn't cool.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's, we're, my whole operation is I'm here, I'm there, I'm in Florida, I'm in the Bahamas. I'm constantly on the move and always just coming back to home base, which is, wife and kids.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I get to, be home, be a dad, be present, and invest my time. And then when it's go time, it's phones off.
Yeah.
Drift off to wherever you need to go.
Yeah,
it's Neverland.
Right.
It's the best.
Brian and I have been we always do our research on people before they hop on, and you have a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
You have a lot to unpack that we don't really know.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you do.
we know.
We know what you do, but we don't know what you do.
And we hate just being so tell us your story. That's not how we do it. We do it in a very off the hip kind of rapid fire way. Right.
I'm super stoked to be up here. I love driving. Yeah. This drive up here was amazing. It's gives you time to think about, well, what are we going to talk about? And then, it doesn't really matter because we're all connected through water.
Exactly.
So the conversation just flows.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I've always liked what you guys are doing. I mean, I definitely think it's there's a lot of median going on. There's a lot of transition in our industry right now. From where I come from, I always felt like the guys that I was always getting my stuff from were people in the magazine business. So it's well, what are we writing about? What's the next thing? Go figure it out, because we don't want to be somebody who's doing an interview and then writing about an interview with somebody who's figured it out. We were always trying to stay ahead of the curve. We want to be the ones figuring it out, and then we write about it, and then we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's all kind of changed. Now it's like all these YouTubers and, Instagram famous, and it's this struggle to create content, which I think to some extent it's cool, but it's not really,
I feel like people lost the sight of what they're doing it for.
Yeah. And you can kind of like, I don't really know how to say this, but like, you can kind of fake the expertise in a lot of those cases. Yeah. Like you can edit it certain ways. You can only post like the good days.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I like this is like you can be super authentic and talk about the highs, the lows. You're not just trying to always impress people. You're just trying to be realistic.
Yeah. You guys have always brought in like a good group of guys. And it's funny. I just said this before. I was like, oh man, I looked at the whole list of guys you've done work with. And I'm like, I know all these guys one way or another. Every single person down the line.
Yeah.
Ali, I bumped into him at an ICAST show, and I happened to have this skull mount with me, and my brother does these skull mounts.
That's my brother. I didn't realize.
Yeah, Dacus Bones.
I didn't realize that. That's such a good segue /
Oh yeah. So I show this Kubera snapper to Ali, and I'm like, dude, check this out. And they ended up doing a whole episode just on Dave. Which is yeah, dude. Dave's
he did that big swordfish for them, right? Didn't like him and Rush get that?
Yeah, Rush is awesome. He's from the Keys. Him and I.
That's cool.
Yeah. We've great group of guys.
Yeah.
Obviously from the Penn side of things, I'm on the Shimano side of things, but when we get to these conventions and stuff, it's like, oh, I know you, and what do we have to talk about? What do you have to share with me? What's new?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, that whole thing was an adventure in and of itself because Dave was a taxidermy guy in high school, paid his way through college with it.
That's cool.
And we started doing skulls for the sole purpose of trying to figure out what were the best hooks to use for certain species. Because when you take the bones and you figure out which circle hooks roll the jaw the best, like now we're doing it not by guess, we're doing it scientifically. Like 50-pound Kubera snappers, here's the hook, here's why. Here's how it rolls. Here's the shape you need. And we started doing it with a lot of different species.
That's
and
really cool.
It turned into a business for him. And it's crazy because all my trophies go to Dave.
Yeah.
So I have this whole collection of like all my greatest fish ever. And there's skull mounts of them all. And it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
I'm always impressed by those things. The amount of work,
I'm so
the amount of
psyched
bones, effort.
Found the way to
I know. Found the path there. That's so really
unique,
cool.
Like we're doing a lot of unique, weird things now too, and let's go. Maybe we'll collaborate on something in the future.
Yeah, it's
It'd be
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah.
He's got a crazy thing going on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sword skeleton in a table or a bar or something like that.
That'll get me going.
I know. Get you all randy.
It's really cool when you see all the bones spread out before he starts assembly.
Oh, that would give me anxiety, I think, a little bit.
No, I think it'd be a cool table piece where you have like one fully assembled and then one just totally scattered in parts.
That'd be sweet.
That'd be cool.
Very,
really
very cool. So shout out to Dacus Bones.
Hell yeah.
Dacus Bones.
We'll make sure he's linked all in here.
So super stoked to be here, boys.
Yeah.
We're stoked to
got a
have
lot
you.
to talk about.
I'm only going on my phone
For
because
sure.
I write stuff on my phone. He writes stuff on my phone.
Yeah, I'm a little older than him, so I still like the...
I feel like we're up in the mountains here.
Yeah.
Do you want?
I just memorize it better if I write it.
Do you want to start off with kind of like his history? Or do you want to go?
No, I think we'll kind of go into that as we ask him these questions. So are you ready?
Let's fire.
All right. Do you want to go first or you want me to
you
go first?
You got the good initial ones.
Let's start off with...
These are random things that we thought of.
I love it.
All right, let's start off with I actually like the Dean question because this is going to like bring a lot of theories to the table, I think. So we asked Dean this one back in the spring. You fish the canyons a shit ton.
Yep.
What's one tactic that you've always wanted to like seriously try in the canyons that you have not yet? Like it could be for another species, for example, like kite fishing or something like that. What's one tactic that you've always been like, I wish I could just spend like a week or two out there and do nothing but this that you haven't yet?
To try to perfect it.
Yeah.
Or see if it even works.
Yeah.
So we have a year-round fishery in Florida for swordfish. Mm-hmm. And the progression has been 1 rod to 2 rods to 3 rods to 4 rods now. Like the guys that really have the right crews, and really have their shit together can fish, a big spread.
Daytiming for those that are listening.
Yeah, there's that time in the canyon where you're just like aimlessly trolling and looking and you're marking and fish are a little bit deeper and you're seeing bait balls and all the signs of life are there. They're just not feeding on the bars on the surface or ballyhoo, that's subsurface or, even like a lure that's swimming down underneath the prop wash. That's just not where those fish are during that part of the day. And, it's always interesting to me to perfect techniques in one place of the world and then bring them and apply them in other places in the world. And I definitely think, I have 2 ride or die partners up in the Northeast. One is Lou DeFusco.
He's the man. He did that bill on the wall there.
And one is Robbie Taylor. So
I'm just going to pause you for 1 sec. Robbie Taylor's facial hair is just something fucking magical about it, dude.
Dude, he needs to be on like those Old Spice.
I've never had a conversation with him in person, but every time I see a picture or video of him, it's just like brings a smile.
I was
to my
about
face.
this close to bringing Robbie with me today. 'Cause last night he called me. We were like, "Oh, where you at? I'm in Newport. I'm at West Marine, getting some stuff, and I had
We'll have to have
some
him on.
coaching stuff to take care of." And he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Dude, you want to take a ride with Mass to me tomorrow? Let's go to Mass." "What are you doing?" "I'm doing this podcast." He's like, "Oh, I love those guys. I don't know them, but they're pretty cool." He's he's great dude. I mean, we can get into more of that later. But
Yeah, for sure. Sorry
to answer your
interrupt.
question, there's you take a lifetime of fishing and you're looking at a situation. You're like, well, what would be the right scenario for this? And there's no doubt in my mind that it's starting to catch on, but it's not really moving as fast as it did down south in Florida. Is stop the boat, put out 4 rods, and be fishing the depths of like 1,500, 1,000, 750, 500, 350, moving baits, fishing live baits down that deep, fishing in areas where those fish retreat to during the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Because you can't force the bite. What you can do is shift the way you're fishing and put the baits in the areas where they're swimming. And I think that that's gonna, unearth better big eye fishing, more swordfish bites, and definitely, some critters.
Yeah.
for sure. Stuff you never even realized.
DeCavey and I
Yeah.
were like, I happened to randomly bump into him over at Justin from Chatterlures. He was redoing all his gear, and Mark was just like, "Yeah, first one to get you. Once you get an OPA, that's it. We retire."
Those things are badass.
Yeah, super, super cool. But, the way you're going to catch that fish is like that. Fishing a buoy rod, 500 feet, pushed out behind the boat with a live, something on it, squid or a mackerel. And, up here, it's just, it's just pound, troll. It's just, there's times you just got to stop and reapproach things.
For people, I think what you're describing takes work, which we all like, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, 4 rods up on the tower, put some buoy whips in them, mark them.
Yeah.
Get out there, boom, 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 put out rod 1 at 1,000, rod 2 at 500, rod 3 at 300, and make lunch.
Yeah.
Just do it for an hour.
Yeah.
But, if I was going to spend a week out in the canyon doing something totally different that I wanted
That would
to
be
really
wild.
perfect out here, we were fishing the tri-state this year, and this year we fished Veach. I was on 92 Viking with Louie and Manny and the Chinatime, and it's great electronics, and we're driving along, and I'm marking these like balls, and you're seeing these, I don't know if they were, manta rays or big eyes or swordfish or giants or whatever, but the echo feedback, you're like, oh man, that's him.
Yeah.
Just keep turning till he's
Please come up.
but we're all looking up, and I'm looking at Lou. He's like, oh, we should drop right now. And I'm like, yes, we should. So to answer your question, that would be the thing that I would love to just spend a week doing out here.
Yeah.
Doing no trolling, none of that. Just, what I would call like mid-water drifting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah.
But it's basically a daytime swordfish format.
If you could run through, I'm sure you have the spread in mind. But if you're running that 3-4 rod mid-water drift spread, what would you want on there for baits?
I always say, you got to fish the bait you can get your hands on, right? So if it's in the summertime, you can get snappers. Snapper's a great bait. You just got to size your leader to the bait.
And where are you getting snappers?
Like July, August, September, when the snappers move in. just spend a little bit of time on the dock, just filling the tank up with, I just like live baits.
Yeah.
There's times that we go out there and they never, I never crack the well and you never even use them. But there's times that, you're fighting a fish or two. It's like, oh, yeah, take a spinning rod and send out a live bait. Why not? For the tri-state this year, we definitely had a whole tank full of squid.
Yeah.
Did it make a difference? It didn't that day, but I always say, like, my mantra is like, I'm going to prep for the trip 120%, and it pays off 50% of the time.
Correct, yeah.
Yep. So
Same.
just those extra little things that you've prepared for. Not every trip it makes a big deal, but I can't count on my hand how many times that extra little thing that I did makes all the difference in the end of the day.
Totally. Even if it's just the time saving and maximizing your time, making you more efficient right there, it's already.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just, I think, it might have been the last podcast with Ben, we were talking about filling a bucket full of mackerel in the morning.
Yeah.
And like 4 trips out of however many we did, a couple hundred. But 4 out of those couple hundred, we were hand feeding fish.
Yeah.
Granted, they didn't come all the way with their backs out of the water, but they came all the way up to 30 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a savage 4 days spread out throughout the summer and fall because we kept mackerel every day.
Yeah.
It's crucial. That's the X factor that separates the fleet from the elite.
Totally.
It's that extra 20% of prep. And that's what keeps,
You step ahead of everybody.
Bites.
Yeah. Totally.
It's that one extra thing everyone's
Constantly
got.
innovating.
Do just sit there like all day with midwater baits just to see. You gotta have the right crew though.
You would have to bring our buddy Joe Pritchard so he could just cook shit and he'd be a perfect person to have on a day like that.
He wouldn't sleep either.
Yeah, he doesn't sleep. He cooks the most amazing food.
Yeah.
And he'll get you the most random bite possible.
Midday, midwater,
telling you,
drifting guy.
It's definitely really cool. Like, as the evolution of your career goes, like, the more accolades you get, the more fishing you do, you get invited to go fish in cool operations.
Totally.
And it's like, listen, you're the fishy guy, so you do whatever we need to do to be fishy, and I don't have to worry about ice or food or running the boat or maintaining the boat. It's just like, you do what you do.
Yeah.
We'll make sure everyone's comfortable.
Right.
And it's sometimes those are the coolest trips because you can't force a great trip. Either it's going to happen or it's not.
Totally.
And either you're ready for it or you're not. And oftentimes feel like the best trips are, for me at this point, it's like I love fishing with people that are just excited to see how it's done rather than fishing. And there's times that I like my ride or die crew where it's like, yo, we're going to go crush wahoo on a 24-hour. We're not going to sleep.
Yeah.
We'll race to the Bahamas, come back, and it's going to be nonstop. I love that too. But I in the Northeast, when you're making that haul, it's really nice to, really put an emphasis on outside of the box stuff, dialed in on what's really productive and just be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Midwater drifting.
It's no different than shark fishing. I mean, the only difference is you're fishing braid, you're fishing 150-foot leaders. If you giant fish, the little things make all the difference.
Totally.
Crimp's got to be perfect and
shit
things like
straight.
that.
For those that are listening that have money they want to spend and sit in the canyons and try something new and report back, try it out.
I definitely think you could do it on if you brought, it would be very light, but like 4 50s or TAC 50s, TAC 25s, something that size.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spooled with 50, 65-pound line, you can get away with that.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
That'd be sick.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I think Lou, me, Ralph Kraft, and a couple of other Newport fish junkies, we were doing a canyon run and up on the T-top for every single run that season. We just loaded the whole T-top up with spinning rods with bronzes, an 80-pound fluoro. It's like, we're going to go troll all day. But, maybe arguably the greatest canyon trip ever and that I can think of in the last 3 years. Me and Lou were out running, had a great day, had a couple eyeballs, bunch of yellowfin. Like, all right, let's go try some sword fishing. So we're sword fishing, we're in Beach. It just wasn't happening. We're fishing, no bites. And Lou's like, dude, what is that? And we just see a whale shark, like right on the edge. And we pick everything up, we run over to the whale shark, and this big eye's just sickling out of the water all around the whale shark.
What?
And at that moment in time, it was like dude, we have a whole rocket launcher loaded with Ron Z's. Everyone grab one and go. So everyone just starts firing out in every which direction, and everything gets tight all at once.
That's unbelievable.
And it was like a 5-banger at Big Eyes, and they were all in like the 125, 150 pound class. And I remember looking at Lou like, this is that moment, where it's like bringing that tackle paid off.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And having it 100%, reliable.
Yeah, and we did, I don't know, 7 or 8 trips where they never even come off.
I'm not sure.
And, it's just that one time that you're ready for it, and boom, it happens.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Drop T.
Oh, man. All right. So up here, overall bottom fish are fairly dumb. Fairly dumb. Cod, haddock, pollock, cusk, all that kind of stuff.
Eating wise, they're great.
Oh, they're delicious. Mm-hmm. But they're more often than not pretty easy to catch.
It's a wet sock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the hardest bottom fish to catch in Florida?
In Florida?
Florida.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I love bottom fishing.
Yeah.
I love, I respect that about Robbie Taylor too. It's like when he's not fishing, he's fishing.
Yep.
And when he's not doing that, he's thinking about it. So there's no off switch, yeah. Right? So I always find like the complete angler is somebody who can find passion in anything.
Yeah. I
love bottom fishing. I love fluking, sea bass, and black fishing.
Right.
But to answer your question, I kind of really love it all. I love the challenge of trying to perfect it, no matter what it is, every time we go. I would have to say my favorite bottom fish to target in Florida is probably Cubera snapper. Cuberas are probably my favorite because it's, first of all, it's not easy to do, right? Yeah. So I like fisheries where it's like no one really knows what's going on. Every time you go, you got to kind of refigure it out. They have a great fishery forum in the Keys. They have an epic fishery forum in the Bahamas. And not a lot of people know about it. And the way we do it is we dive for lobsters, put the lobsters in the live tank, and when the sun sets on the full moon, right outside the inlets and right outside certain passes and corals and stuff, we drop down live lobsters. And you kind of get them close to the bottom, and the lobsters are...
YouTubers do that. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Clicking, and it just is like, woof.
Yeah.
Full drag. Is it truly like full drag? You cannot let them have anything?
Full drag. Just lockdown. 100-pound lockdown.
So fight-wise, you'd say those are probably the most difficult down there?
It's challenging just because they're few and far between. There's just a lot of, there's so many elements that go into doing it. You got to have somebody who can for us, it came about just diving for conch. It's like, oh, we're diving for conch, or diving for lobster, and what's that?
Yeah. Mark
that spot.
Yeah.
So, Bahamas Cubera is probably one of my favorites, but I love deep drop snapper fishing. That's always just, it's fun. Fish taste amazing. You never know what's coming up. Could be a mystic, could be a queen, could be a yellow eye, could be a silky, could be a, 6-gill shark.
I haven't either.
Yeah, it's like tile fishing. Love tile fishing. That's always, when everything kind of gets...
tile fish, I've just never, done the whole grouper thing and all that,
Oh, it's so cool. It's super, super fun. Yeah. I mean, imagine 50, 60-pound striped bass, except they're tog.
Right.
In Florida and the Bahamas. It's sick. It's a totally different... There's a lot going on there, Yeah.
Those things are cool looking. Those Cuberas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Their teeth are insane.
I actually caught one in Dominican.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they pop for them in Panama.
In the channel, you're goofing around, trolling ballyhoo down, into the harbor in Dominican. And we actually hooked it, right at the entrance to the harbor.
That's sweet.
Yeah, we thought it was a tarpon, because I guess there's tarpon in the harbor there. I don't know if that's true, but that was pretty wild.
That's cool. So I'm assuming this is going to dovetail on one of your questions. I'm assuming sharks are one of the, things you have to combat while you're, catching those things. How is the in your perspective, like the shark issue down in Florida, Bahamas area, like are you experiencing like tons more bite offs year to year, or is it pretty much the same?
There's some interesting stuff going on, you know. They banned the shark finning down in the Caribbean. So it's pretty much banned. They made it illegal to sell shark fins. And what that did is, you know, if you're not harvesting all the species at a certain rate, one just starts to take over. And yeah, sharks have become a problem. It's definitely something where I remember with, you know, I don't know, I've been sail fishing down in Florida for 20 years. One time I can remember getting sharked with a sailfish. You know, you reel the sailfish in and he comes in half.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, you know, big mako, big bull, big tiger, something like that. And now it seems like, you know, you're pretty much getting sharked almost every time you go.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, when we're sail fishing down there, you can't really have a banner day unless you're catching multiples.
Yeah.
And you can't catch multiples if you're chasing everyone you hook all the time. Sometimes you got to just hook one and sit tight. And that's the best teaser, is another fish. Right?
Yeah.
Also, it's the same up here, you know. Some of the way we tournament fish for sailfish, and then I'm watching GoPro footage of us on the canyons, and it's like, oh, rod goes off. What's everyone do? Clear the spread. Well, why?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You got a teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the Bahamas, when we're targeting tunas, you know, we chunk, you hook one, and that's when everyone really starts to get focused on making sure baits aren't tangled, good chunk going.
Yeah.
And you know, you want to kind of like a couple of hooked, get one in, hook a few more, get one in, hook a few more, get one in, hook a few more. Because that bite on him, you know, it might last just a very short amount of time, so you got to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to your thing about sharks, it's become a problem everywhere. I mean,
Even up here by us.
Yeah.
yeah, there's no, I mean, look, you know, you got to cull them.
Yeah.
You know, they tried to do a shark tournament out of Palm Beach, and it was like all these activists came out like, why are you killing these things? I'm like, this is ridiculous. You know, you got to harvest them. You know, you have to thin the herd a little bit, so to speak. You can't have a ranch. It gets overrun with certain things. You've got to thin it out to have a healthy population.
We coyote hunted the other day.
Yeah, you got to. Otherwise, you won't get turkeys.
Yeah.
You know, they spook the deer. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's funny.
You can't kill deer and kill turkey, and one thing with the dominant species will take over.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it's amazing the difference. I mean, just on the bank alone with the sharks, I've never seen the sharks so bad.
Yeah, I had one day this year where we just saw like a pot of like, this was in the Northeast. So I don't know, we were out sea bass fishing one day, and I just look under the boat, and it's, you know, probably 100 sandbar sharks. I'm like, what the hell are they doing here?
What are they eating? How do they survive like that?
I think they, you know, kind of just move through, and whatever the biomass is, it's there, they're on it.
Clean it out.
Bunker or sea bass or, you know, porgies, whatever it is, they're on it.
Nuts.
You know? But it's gotten bad. Yeah, definitely the great whites are coming back too.
Yeah, the white shark interactions, like you don't even feel comfortable lipping a bass anymore inshore. We've had, you know, multiple stories of guys from Nova Scotia to here, bluefin attacks, swimming fish.
Yeah.
Even just like the thresher population, porbeagle population by us, like 10 years ago, I'd never even seen or caught a thresher shark. And now you get in, you know, schools of mackerel on the bank, and they're up at the surface, you know, balled up. You're more than likely going to see a thresher tail rip through it now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Even inshore, like Stone Ledge, you know, 8-9 miles out from, you know, where our boats are, you're covered up. And big ones too, like 300-pound plus animals.
Yeah, I think,
you know?
I mean, not that shark fishing is really growing by us, but I think you're going to start seeing some people like targeting some of those thresher sharks and stuff inshore. Because if you went out and actually chummed and moved around with, you know, bluefish and mackerel, you know, live baits, I think you could have 3 to 5 shots a day.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah. Robbie and I had,
sharks.
It was like, what was it, August? So it was like right at August, just when we get going on the giant fishing, and we were out at Cox's, think we had 5 threshers, a mako.
Jesus.
Had to move away from that just to get our giant bite.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but it's cool.
For,
you know?
for charters, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, obviously when you're trying to get to that goal of getting a bluefin, it can be tricky and you can get annoyed. Yeah. But at the end of it's like anything else. You know, the bycatch can be annoying as someone that does it every day, but for charters, it's a blast. You know, you always got to kind of not fake it because it's always fun. It's all fun.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to like change the way you want to react sometimes so that it doesn't ruin someone's day.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you're not excited when people want to eat a blue shark.
I know, right? Yeah. Just great. Yeah, dude. For instance, like, you know, it was probably 10 years ago when we were getting a lot of those. No, it was actually more than that. 15 years ago, we're getting tons of little ones trolling. And the secret for a few of the years was to get in the bluefish.
Yeah.
Like you'd catch 50 freaking bluefish on squid bars that tearing your shit apart. But if you weren't in the bluefish, you weren't getting 100-pound bluefin.
Yeah.
And it's like you're cursing at them, you know, but eventually you get the bite.
Yeah.
You know, and
sometimes you got to grind it out.
You got to grind it out. Well, you had a day of what, 13 blue sharks?
Oh, yeah.
Bluefin bite?
Yeah.
Did you fish any baits on the bottom?
Everywhere. They were eating everything.
It didn't matter.
Surface down 100 feet.
Ben's worked for us this year, mate for us, great kid. He's actually doing the carpentry work in the room next door. But there was one day where, I'm not kidding you, the blue handle jink guys were in his hand the entire fucking day. Like I don't think he put them down.
Yeah.
It's until we finally hooked the tuna fish.
It's nuts.
You're burning through hooks and everything.
There was like a week period where I don't think we made any money on charters. We went through so much fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go through 10 to 15 liters a day with hooks.
And then you got the dogs. Like you got the blue dogs. You got the, you know, we're not against the thresher kind of, you know, mackerel shark bycatch for charters. It's great. But the dogfish and the blue sharks this year, it was the worst I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know?
Usually when we're giant tuna fishing or that sub, you know, I felt like this year, other than years past, usually we're up in the Cape.
Yeah.
But
it was good.
I'm usually fishing with Robbie. So it's, you know, to his, I'm kind of his bow was.
Yep.
Still is, and now
you just got a new boat, right?
Bo's lobstering. It's a great guy.
No, I said you got a new boat that you're
you got that Ross built, right?
Yeah,
recently.
It's a cool boat.
Yeah,
that's fun. I saw a few videos.
I've been watching all the videos of you and your son battling giants. He's so stoked. There's one video I watched recently where you're like, "What are we doing today?" And he's like standing on the ice chest, and he's like play by play talking about like how they're gonna fish for the day, like what's gonna happen and stuff.
Sick.
Oh, unbelievable.
It was on the back of some really good fishing. It's like back to the thing about the dogs and, you know, just going through leaders and everything. You know, we just fished bigger baits this year.
Yeah.
It just seemed like fishing bigger baits, we were getting less bullshit bites.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was crazy because nothing really changed. The leaders didn't change. The hooks didn't change. Everything was pretty much the same, but instead of slapping on a bunker, a mackerel, or squid, it was like 10-pound bluefish.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Robbie as he's strapping this up. I'm like, dude, maybe we should be fishing some bigger
That's
baits.
a great segue.
He was like,
that's a great segue.
he was like, no. Yeah. Boom, right in the back. And we were getting some absolute, I mean, listen, this year was definitely
I think I know what you're about to say.
the craziest giant bluefin fishery out of Newport that I've, you know, old timers were talking about it like, dude, this hasn't happened in 70 years. You know, it's not usually like this, but for whatever reason, those fish just funneled in on that line and they were there. And it was savage there for like
Sick.
pretty much the whole summer.
Sick.
What was the size range there? Were they all slobs?
They were all like 100 to 100.
so big.
100 to 112 was kind of like the slot. There was definitely some like 118, 120 inch fish.
Yeah.
We didn't really see too many like under 90 inches.
And how far offshore are you fishing there?
3 miles.
It's amazing those inshore fish are just hammers.
What's
even in the bay is the same thing.
What's even more amazing is they're catching them there at the same time we're catching them in the bay.
Well, it's more
At the
of them.
same time, the guys are catching them up in PEI, Nova
Yeah.
Scotia. It's
Regal
like
sword
In Maine
off.
and
everywhere.
Nova Scotia went
how many
off.
fish are out there?
I know.
Well, yeah, but I also think I can't remember a season where there was this much like bunker.
Yeah.
This much biomass of bait.
Everywhere too.
Yeah, listen, maybe that's because people weren't fucking with it during COVID. The boats were shut down. Everything was shut down. The restaurants were shut down. No one was buying. They left everything the fuck alone. And it took, a season or two for it to really show itself. But maybe that had something to do with it. But, just to kind of segue into something else, it's crazy. We're all really passionate about fishing, but, none of us really touch the politics side of it.
It's
and
hard
it's hard to, but it's like, you can't have like big government regulating fisheries that have no fucking idea what's real and what's being politicked. People are paying off other people for larger quotas. And how does that affect the sport fishing industry? And when you think about it, it's like by cutting off, just chopping your nose off to spite your face. I mean, the sport fishing industry and the fishing industry supports, millions of families and businesses. And when the fishing sucks, it just sucks. And it's, it just needs to be regulated a little
bit. It trickles all the way down to the hotels and bed and breakfasts that people are,
man. It's just,
staying in for the summer.
It's this whole wind farm bullshit. Now the whales popping up is definitely going to put a pop in that.
Yeah.
And I think, when you propose things like 10 miles an hour in these zones, it's like, who thought this one up?
Yeah.
There was that crazy episode in Yellowstone where the dude's like, yeah, they're going to put up solar farms and cut down all the dove bush. And they're like, well, where are the doves going to live?
Yeah.
He's like, well, there's no research that says that they're going to be affected. And he's like, you're fired.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the fuck you're
I know. Even the whole mackerel thing, like, I understand that like you're not seeing them as much in the mid-Atlantic, but I've never seen this much mackerel / bait in general in my life.
It definitely shifts.
Shifting.
Yeah.
It shifts around. There was a season I fished up in Nova Scotia with Mark Pagano and Fly Navarro and Curtis.
On Big Smoke?
Yeah. Curtis McGilfrey. And I hope I said his name right. Curtis.
It is Curtis. I don't know his last name.
Curtis McGilfrey. Awesome, dude. Anyway, those fish don't know the boundaries. They're just following the bait. They're following the water. And, when you see what they have going on up there with the herring and the mackerel and the way that they catch their fish, those fish just mosey on down the coast, make their way to North Carolina-ish. Some continue on. Some turn around and come back. But it's crazy to follow that fishery, 1,000 miles in either direction.
It's insane.
And it's just, it's crazy because that bait biomass, it's all about the food. So, if you get a seasonal, temperate winter and the fish don't go that far south and then they flow further north the next year, it's crazy. But this year was definitely a big pendulum swing in like the biomass as a bait that I saw. It's crazy.
Totally. We haven't seen, you guys have nuts pogies, but we had insane pogies as well. And we hadn't seen that in
our whole life.
Decades. Our whole life.
We're not that old, but
our grandfather was fishing when they were like the last time they were snagging them out in front of our local waters.
Yeah. Now it's just insane. This year there was 3 pockets of pogies that were a couple miles that stayed there in the entire fishing season.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome.
And it just brought everything in. The bass, the tunas were in 10 feet of water. Guys were seeing them bust out of the water.
Yeah.
And
same in Montauk. They were seeing them like at the point on the beach.
Crazy.
It was all catching them in the gill nets on the beach.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
You're up. Next question, guy. I have one.
This was perfect because he was talking about 10-pound bluefish.
Before you ask it, the audio is captured on the cameras.
Good. So we got both cameras
that's
too.
Backed up.
Yeah.
I am going to ask kind of a similar question to the first one, and that will kind of cascade into like what programs you fish on.
Cool.
Kind of your history. So we'll make sure.
We haven't really touched on that.
Yeah.
We could talk for an hour just about mid-water deep dropping.
Totally.
I'm like horned up about that right now. What's the big, like, bait versus fish you're after? What's the largest bait versus game fish that you've used? You're using
I would definitely say,
I
would definitely say, without a doubt. For all the years of giant tuna fish, and again, Robbie's kind of like my ride or die giant tuna partner. And I have to give a lot of credit to him because just a lot of work goes into getting things fine-tuned, and then it's like, well, I just kind of step in and, see how he's doing it, mimic it. But, at the same time, there's a lot to...
It's a team effort.
It's a team. Yeah, there's a lot that's going on. But Yeah, it seemed like 10-pound bluefish, no change in the gear. There were a few times that we were getting some fish that were like pushing, 850, 900 that were aggressive feeding where you could have went up to 200 pound.
Yeah.
And still gotten the bite. But 10-pound bluefish, 12-pound bluefish.
So it really didn't matter the size of the bluefish.
Oh, no, it was savage. It was
That's
savage.
sick.
It was crazy. You're popping the baits in the water and...
What would you say, because we had this same conversation with Smalley last year, what would you say your successful land rate is using those big baits on tuna fish?
I mean, I have to say, I don't think we chafed many off.
Yeah.
I can't think of one I chafed off this year. I mean, we had maybe two that we had like crotch breaks in the, from the crimp to the leader, but maybe, I have to take fault for that, for maybe pulling the wrong crimp, or, you're trying to use 170 and maybe I used whatever.
Yeah.
It happened to Robbie once with aluminum. It happened to me one time with copper. So those are the only two times that it happened this season.
Yeah.
But the one thing that, I definitely noticed that Robbie was really being strong about was just like when he eats the bait, don't start cranking right away. Just let him choke the bait. Just let him choke
Especially
it.
with the big bluefish. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I mean, my theory about it is if you're watching the rod, you get a hard pull and then it kind of goes slack for a second. Maybe he's turning around and swimming and trying to choke it because he's getting some resistance. But, I'm not fishing traditional circle hooks. There's definitely the Mutu offset to it. Mm-hmm. So just let him choke it. Let him choke that big bait. Don't rush it. And there was definitely a fish with my brother where we get out to the spot, we're marking, I put the bait in the water, and I can't get the bait to get away from the boat. I look over at my brother Jared, I'm like, hit it in reverse. My brother puts the boat in reverse, the bait swings off the bow, and it gets eaten right there off the bow, like 10 feet from me, and I'm like, oh no, I wish I had, more space between...
Scope.
Yeah, because I can't exactly, at this point in time, it's like, bad things can happen if this backlashes.
Yeah.
Bad shit. So, all right, just lock it up and hopefully it's there. And for whatever reason, the fish, I could see the bluefish just come right out of the tuna's mouth. And another one just came right on his back and ate the bait. And we got tight on that.
That's sick.
But it was, with those big baits, I like them a little further away from the boat too.
Yeah.
Because that gives the fish a little bit more room to kind of do what it needs to do to turn
you get a little bit more
around.
slack on the line. It doesn't, the fish doesn't feel it as much.
The turning in the mouth thing's a good point too. You and I were nerding out about that a few weeks ago, but like thinking about the bait you're using, their fin structure, stuff like that. Like a bluefish, it's got spiny, smaller but spiny dorsal. That thing gets eaten tail first. Like
they're flipping it.
They're flipping it. Like that's getting hung and barbed in the roof of their mouth.
They're gonna ram. They're just gonna ram it as hard as they can.
Yeah.
And then figure out what to do once it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So just the theory there behind getting the balloon a little further out away from the boat.
Yeah.
Gives him a little more time to do what he needs to do to get it down.
Makes sense. Were you fishing heavy drag on strike, or are you fishing pretty light?
Same shit. The whole what everyone does. I think we were fishing 30 at strike, 28 at strike, and 52 at sunset. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what you guys fish for mainline, but I'm fishing 150. I feel like 200's a little. There's not enough rubber band in there. 150 is just perfect.
Yeah, 200 sinks too much.
It definitely did get challenging this year because where we were hooking the fish was like mixed in the lobster pots.
Oh boy!
So unless you were like Johnny on the spot with getting on top of the fish quickly, he'd find a way to kind of just inevitably get you wrapped around a pot.
Yeah.
So. We played with the idea of, do we shorten up the main line? Do we beef up the main line? Do we go to Robbie fishes 500. I think I fish 300 so that if the braid gets on the pot, it'll saw through it. But it was definitely interesting, which is back to the Ross boat. It was pretty cool with that little boat. You could kind of get tight on the fish, get right on top of them, lock it up, and let them tow the boat around.
Oh, yeah.
So made it a little bit, I almost think it's easier to catch those fish on a smaller boat.
I agree. I think
talking about that too. We have the center console and the down.
It's very forgiving. The boat's moving as the rod's bending, less pulled hooks, less jerky movement at the hook. Mm-hmm. Once that drags up to 30 pounds, like even just chase them down, it doesn't take much but a few clicks of the outboard to get your way right up to them. Yeah. Like they're pulling you. And then you have leverage on them because if you're keeping the rod angled out, like they're trying to pull that hull along with them, and they're just going to raise, if they're over 100 inches, they're going to raise the surface very quickly.
Yeah, they definitely do some crazy Ivan shit.
Yeah.
And how deep of water are you in there?
For the most part, it's anywhere between, I'm just trying to think, like maybe it was anywhere from 100 to...
So similar to us.
Yeah, similar.
So they stay up a lot probably, right? To the surface?
They kind of do, wherever the fish are, they're at. If the bluefish are there that day, they're going to be on the surface.
What do you mean when you're fighting them? Are they all over the surface with their back out of the water and stuff a lot?
I definitely think the last couple of years up on the Cape, it's been like 90, 100-inch fish. This year was bigger. And I think the older they get, sometimes they get a little lazy, but I do think all of them, for that initial hook, they do some crazy Ivan shit. I mean, dump, stop, come back, hard left, hard right. That's one thing that's a major difference between sword fishing and giant tuna fishing, right? For the most part, like giant tunas, they're fairly predictable. I mean, they're going to do some crazy shit. Yeah. And it's going to require some like advanced maneuvering to not get tangled up in the gear or in the prop or on trim tab or, get on a bad angle with him where he's coming up or scoping under the boat or something. But for the most part, at the end of that fight, he's just going to get into a pinwheel, starboard rod holder, and just
work him up.
Yeah, he's just going to pinwheel you up.
Yeah.
Swordfish, it's totally different fish. It's like every fish, you have no idea what he's going to do. He can jump, sound, charge. He could do all different kinds of shit at you.
Well, they also have so much more leverage because they basically have like a lure lip / bill on their face. So like the pull point, they still have mass forward of the hook too.
It's like a planing hook.
Yeah,
or it's like a planing
big dorsal fin, big fins.
Yeah,
all their tails are fucking huge.
Yeah,
every year's different, and that's what I love about it. Every single year there's different patterns you got to figure out. And this year it was lovely that they were close, but in reality, what are the chances that we're going to get that fishery year after year? Probably not good.
Yeah.
So, it gets back out to those 30-mile runs, 40-mile, wherever you're fishing from. Mm-hmm. And, you go about all the elements. Yeah. So, I love fishing small boats.
Yeah, likewise.
Definitely feel like you have a tactical advantage.
Feels like you're in the game, too. Like, as a captain or whatever, you're, like, there. Like, that's why I love the stern station on the big boat. That's why I love running the small boat. It's like you're right there. Yeah. Some of these bigger boats when you're up top and you kind of feel like you're out of it a little bit.
It's also calmer from a communications perspective.
Yeah, you're not having
just
to yell.
sets the tone for the whole fight too. It's like
I have 2 awesome videos. Right? I was fishing with my buddy Dave Huberman, and he's got a boat called the Homeschool. It's this really cool green stick boat. And I got the video of like the last 2 minutes of the end game on this motherfucker, dude. I brought the leader here. This motherfucker, this fucking thing.
I love showing.
And I have to say, it was the rod that caught that fish because the rod just had enough give not to let it break.
What's that? 10? 10, yeah.
Yeah, 10 on me too. 170 Premier. No chafe gear on the swivel.
That's ballsy.
But I'm watching the video and it's like no one says a fucking word. Don't need to, because everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's other operations. It's crazy. On the flip side of that, it's like when we're fishing with Robbie, he's like, rah, 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 rah. It's like it's super exciting. It's super fun, but it's just it's cool that there's the excitement level, and then on that boat it was just like no one needs to say a fucking word. Everyone on this boat's a murderer. We all know how to do this.
Exactly. That fish is not safe. That's sweet. That's sweet.
I saved that to remind myself that just because everyone does it one way doesn't mean it can't be done another way.
Oh, there's a bunch of ways to skin the cat.
That was a big fish. That was like a 116-inch fish.
Wow.
And I mean, at the end there, that fish got real stubborn. It was a full moon fish. I don't know if the moon has something to do with the way they fight. Maybe they're just packing on the heat because there's more. I definitely think the moon affects the bait, and I think the moon can affect the way the bait congregates, and maybe those baits are just thicker and easier for them to gorge on.
And strong tide moon, they have that advantage.
Yeah.
You know, they get that weight and they
Like
get that current.
like I'm definitely not an athlete like a few days after Thanksgiving.
yeah.
You know?
yeah.
But that
Tell you what,
fish
the
is-
beginning of the year, the migrating fish are just a beast to deal
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, they change shape. It's crazy. Swordfish too. You know, the swords, sometimes they have the travel marks in them, and it's much more common to see those up here.
What do you mean by travel marks?
So it's like stretch marks, right? When you harvest the fish, they have these like grooves in their body. And that's from just the body getting fat, getting skinny, getting fat, getting skinny. So a lot of times down in Florida, we catch these resident fish. Our average fish down there is 100, sub 200, you know, $150. That's kind of the average. Yeah, you see some big ones, but for the most part, that's like 7 out of 10. You're going to see like that 1 to 150 range. And a lot of those fish are just real smooth sides. They're residents. They're spending a lot of time in that area. They're not really migrating. The fish that have like the travel lines in them, and you'll know it right when you see them.
I think I know what you're talking about now. That
Like
you're,
kinkles, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ripples in their skin.
Yeah.
you'll see the coloration's different too, right? Like the browns, the silvers, or are you talking like actual?
It's just like kind of like ridgy looking, sort of.
Stretch marks.
Yeah,
It's,
stretch
you know,
marks.
it's just, that fish is plumped up, really took advantage of whatever situation it got into
and
a
then
ball.
moved.
And then they can travel
Got
a
it.
decent length of time and just shed the weight as they go.
Mm-hmm.
But like camels can drink a whole heap of water and then walk in the desert for like weeks without
Yeah.
having to drink water. They store it.
Yeah.
Same sort of concept where it's just they can pack it in
Yep.
and then they can really travel. But I don't think there's a lot of current down there on the bottom. I think all the way from like New York to Florida, I don't think there's much of a temperature change.
Yeah.
So it's like even though we have like stark changes in like surface temperature, I think at that depth of water, like call it 2,000. Usually we're fishing inside of that, but for the most part, like that water temp's like within 5 or 6 degrees from the north to the south. And so,
They're just cruising.
yeah, and when they get in those pockets of shrimp, they turn into pumpkins.
I think it's so cool watching fish change based on time of year and what they eat and all that. It's really cool to see.
Do you think when they get to a certain size, they move a lot more? Like, are you seeing these larger fish, what you're saying, over 200 pounds, moving out of Florida and going other places or vice versa? You have a theory. I can
Really?
already tell.
No. I don't have a theory.
Okay.
So
I know.
So, and this comes back to Dave from Dacus Bones.
Careful your feet.
Sorry.
Dacus is like, yo, check this skull out. You could tell that this fish was on the decline because, you could take two fish that are identical in weight. And when we look at their skulls that Dave does, there's like major difference between a fish that came from the Caribbean and a fish that came from North Carolina.
Really?
Major difference. Jaw structure, eyes, even though it's the exact same fish, but they kind of adapt to their environment to some extent. And I also think that based on the bones that we've seen, I think they reach a certain size and then they start to decline. You start to see like tumors or, let's say a fish is like longline hooked as a juvenile, let go, or buoy fish hooked and let go. He's going to carry that scar with him for the rest of his life. And you're going to see that as the fish matures, like it's grown over, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So you can see a fish that's much older, that's been hooked as a juvenile, it changes the way that its face looks. And you can see how it's, it's like that with anything else.
Right. It's like humans.
But Dave and I have collected several 400-pound fish heads, several 500-pound fish heads. We got the, I think it's the North Carolina state record fish Dave just got. And they all look different. It's really, really crazy. It's just, I had one that was like 420 and the 420 something. I can't remember the exact weight.
That's a quarter. I think I might cry if I see a swordfish that big next to the boat.
It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So sick.
Sometimes they just come out. Oh, Louis sent me a video the other day. He's like, this fish is coming over the rail on a long line boat. He's like, how big do you think this is? I'm like, definitely 700-ish.
Yeah.
And usually, like when they get over a certain size, you hook them, you fight them, they just die.
Yeah.
They just die. They just have
Same
a heart
with
attack and
tunas,
stop.
heart attacks, all that kinds of stuff.
On that big one down in the Keys, when we put the fish on the deck, she was just oozing eggs out the back.
Yeah.
Just oozing orange eggs were just kind of flowing out of her.
Wow.
And it's definitely crazy that no one really knows for sure. There's not very much swordfish data that's out there, although the swordfish data that is out there is pretty astounding and not what you'd think it would be. Like they tag these things and they put these acoustic tags in it, and then they tell you, yeah, for us to get the data, the fish has to pop the antenna out of the water, and you're thinking to yourself, like, I just caught this fish deep dropping. Like, you might never get the data off this thing. Mm-hmm. And then like 2 days later, you get 50 pings that she was swimming on the surface for miles, and then does it every day then thereafter for weeks. So it's pretty astounding.
Really is.
It's really crazy.
Your body to be able to tolerate that much temperature change, that much pressure change, the sensitivity to light with their eyes. It's a pretty resilient animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got some really cool, like swordfish eye, big eye, and giant bluefin eye. And when you look at the orbit of the eye, they're all really different. But those three particular fish can tolerate that kind of up, down migration quickly. And, without like gassing out and their eyes pop out of their head. And, one thing that's consistent on all those three is that orbit is like dense bone.
Yeah.
And some of that plays into like just their hunting characteristics. They need to like heat that eyeball to see.
Right. Keep it insulated.
Yeah, but those giant tunas, I can't wait to see. I've never actually, I don't know if anyone's got one, but giant tuna skulls. And, the orbit in their eye, it looks like a mushroom.
Huh.
It's like tapered at the bottom.
Interesting.
Super interesting. And I don't know that has to do with them being able to look and move that eye backwards, forwards to see kind of more behind it. But it's definitely different than a swordfish eye. And it's definitely different than a big eye or a yellowfin eye. It's unique.
That's cool.
Super cool.
We've caught a few tuna fish with some weird scars and wounds from previously being hooked, and it's amazing to see like how they regrow and heal. We caught one that was like 100+ incher, 600+ pounder this year, and we're dragging it tail roped, and he's still kicking pretty good, and the dart shots were towards the tail because he came up tail wrap. We're like, let's swim him back. He had like half his color was like gone. He was like brown halfway down just from being wrapped up and drowning basically. So we wanted to try to revive him a bit. So we reached down to put the swim hook, the kill swim hook, in his mouth, and his lower jaw had split from his throat all the way to the tip of his lower jaw at some point in his life. Whether he'd been hooked and tore out as a baby through a crucifier, I have no idea. But it had regrown all the way back, like underneath his tongue, and then he had rows of teeth on both sides. It had all regrown.
Yeah, it's
just like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like shark bites? Like, you think about, you don't always hinge hook them, even with inline circle hooks. You gut hook one every now and then. You think about like those clouds of blood as you have pressure on the wound, leadering them and stuff, and you're like, oh man, I don't know if he's going to make it. Then you see one with like a mortal wound. And it's like
half his back missing,
a third of your muscles gone. Like, how did you not die? Or how, or at least just in that couple hours after getting bit. It's pretty wild.
What about that one with Sam Law that he caught with the hole through its gill plate?
Yeah, it had he could.
It's like
see,
a 6-inch diameter hole,
and the
right through his
rakers
gill
had
plate.
grown. Like the rakers had grown around the hole and stuff.
Somebody probably darted it.
Maybe
got off and things survived.
Nuts.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
What else you got?
So I'm gonna ask this kind of just general. It's kind of back to tactics, and then I want to hear about all the boats you fish on and all that sort of thing, because you have done a lot. We've talked about bottom fishing, talked about the want and desire to spend a week mid-water drifting, baits. Out of these methods, what's your favorite for pelagic fishing? Trolling lures, chunk, live bait drift, deep drop fishing, bait and switch dredge fishing / teaser fishing.
I love it all.
I knew it was going to be a problem.
I do. I love it all. Because I was like hoping you'd ask me this question. I got a good answer for you.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of great fishermen get really, really good at something, and they stick with it, right? And it's tough to get them to come outside that comfort zone. But, just kind of little history here. I always think anyone who wants to like do anything in this industry needs to attend ICAST, because it's not open to the public. It's everyone that's in the industry. Anyway, a couple years ago, that's a long time ago, 12, 13 years ago, I'm walking around the show, and there's Larry Dahlberg. And I walk over to him. I'm like, yo, Larry, what's up? I'm a huge fan. He's like, tell me about yourself. So we started talking, and we had a common connection.
Legend.
Yeah,
We had a common connection. And the connection was, he fishes with the guy who owns Jack Link's Beef Jerky. His captain happened to be my best friend, Justin Shum. And Justin tells Larry, whatever, ICAST is over. I invite Larry to come down sword fishing. And Justin and Larry get to talking, and Justin's like, oh, yeah, you should go sword fishing. So we end up shooting a show together. And spending time with Larry, it's so unique, because he's like one of those guys that's a personality that's definitely by far like that guy that I can just call up on a long drive and we could just talk for a while. And his perspective is so unique, because he's like, listen, even though you figured out this fishery, don't think that there's not other ways to target the same exact fish a better way. Everyone's just looking at it through one keyhole. But there's other keyholes all around that idea.
Yeah.
You've just got to take the time and work at it. So when you ask me, do I like deep dropping, deadbait trolling lures, trolling live bait, chunking, I love it all, because there's a time and a place for each one of those approaches. And it's being able to like pull in your box of tools and knowing when to apply one technique over other techniques, and I kind of got away from tournament fishing because, it's like, oh man, we got to go fish. The fishing's going to suck and the weather's going to be terrible. And it's like, it's like, this isn't fun anymore. It's not fun anymore, because it's like you're cutting 50-pound mahis off because we're in a sailfish tournament. But listen, I mean, I love fishing tournaments. Don't get me wrong. I love the competition. I love all that stuff. But I also think, when you ask me that question, what do I love more? I love having all of that ready to go and being able to pull that toolbox out at that time. Yeah. Where I see the fish converting from a jig bite to a popper bite. Yeah. And it's like, boom, you're ready to go. You just got to do some lure changes and that happened this year, Our buddy Kevin on Blue Line Charters, like kind of Kevin and Lou both were out there and saw the porpoises pushing and the tunas right up on them. And, Lou has definitely traveled the world and done shit most people don't do. But I don't ever remember anyone throwing poppers for yellowfins on that gully to, like that local close bite. I mean, yeah, it's been around for a few years, but it's not really something where everyone was like, oh, dude, we got to go out and get mad mantis poppers now. I need them. This is the only thing they're biting. Listen, you need to be able to be good at all of those things and then know when to apply them in the fishery.
Right. Totally.
And I do love them all, but I kind of get burned out on one if I have to do it for too long. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. We feel that with charter.
The tournaments can be brutal.
Yeah.
They are fun, obviously, when you're successful. Yeah. The stars align, but
I feel like I know.
You're like put in this box that you can't fully control.
Yeah. You can only fish these boundaries. You can only fish these times. You can only fish. You got to be in
certain times.
I remember fishing one tournament. We were fishing some tournament in the Bahamas, and you had to catch a wahoo, a dolphin. What was it? A tuna, a marlin. You had to catch all those species. But there was like an exit time and a return time. I think it was like day one of the tournament. And like we're running back in and we're just watching these birds go nuts. And we're just seeing tunas air out. And we're like thinking to ourselves like, oh man, we got to make it to weigh-in. And I just, if I had like one regret, it was just being like, yo, fuck weigh-in. We're just going to stay fucking dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did that one time with the Miss Wilder boys. We were just like,
so Steve Diffenbacher's fishing with them, right?
Yeah, I think so. Steve, Did he just transition with them?
I don't know.
I want to say it's been like, if he
dude.
did, it was recent, because when we picked up tails from Steve last year, he was with another owner. And then and that might have just happened, I think.
I don't know. Steve's a Florida boy.
Or maybe he's fished with them like as crew or something for a while, and then I'm not sure
didn't mean to
entirely. Yeah.
So
no worries.
You were coming back from a tournament and
Yeah, when we did that, like it was like we had like 3 yellowfins in the box. It was just a kind of a grindy tournament. Like
you knew it wasn't going to happen.
Everyone was kind of grinding, like in the canyon that we were in. Like the stick boats were doing well and catching tunas, but like no one was really doing much. There was like one random blue marlin bite and stuff, and all of a sudden, like the whites were like showing themselves, and we were like, "Fuck this!" Like,
like
let's catch the white marlin. Let's go white marlin. Like, get our count up here a little bit and have like a reasonable, canyon trip. Not that even a slow trip's reasonable because you're in the canyons, but it was just funny.
It is funny.
It's anyway. Love knowing all those tactics because a lot of guys that troll aren't really that great at rigging ballyhoo, and I feel like it's always a great thing to like take a season and be like, okay, I'm gonna do something totally different this year, just so that I can know it better.
Yeah,
I definitely think ballyhoo is, like, by far, I don't ever pull stingers on my bars that are, machine heads. They're always ballyhoo.
Yeah.
Islander
We did a
over
lot of
ballyhoo.
ballyhoo behind bars this year too, up by us.
if you take the same approach, like this leader and the attention to detail that we do with the big giant eye, giant bluefin tunas, and apply it to like rigging ballyhoo and stuff, you're gonna be an absolute stud out there.
Yeah.
Like if you put that much detail into every aspect, every tactic, like you're saying.
Yeah. Extra 20% pays off
Totally.
50% of the time.
Totally. This episode is brought to you by Rodan Marine Systems. This past season, we partnered up with Rodan Marine. They produce extremely high quality trolling motors / GPS anchors. We have a 30-foot center console. It's actually a 2801 Parker with a bracket, considered a large center console. And we do a ton of anchor fishing. We fish on anchor a lot inshore in the rivers and inshore waters around the South Shore of Massachusetts and throughout Cape Cod Bay. Live bait fishing for striped bass. We also fish on anchor a ton. I would say 75% of the time while we're offshore tuna fishing, live bait fishing, we're on anchor. So having the ability to quickly stop the boat, deploy an anchor, and not have to use 400 feet of anchor line and deal with swing on a tide change and not easily being able to reposition, it's kind of a no-brainer for us to reach out to Rodan and see if they would be interested in putting one of their trolling motors on our boats. We've been fortunate enough to use Rodans down in Florida with a couple of our buddies who have actually been on the podcast, Jason Stock and Dave White, and we were extremely impressed by them when we used them on their boats, and their boats are of comparable size to ours. So we ended up getting, thanks to Rodan, we ended up getting their 36-volt HD GPS trolling motor with the 96-inch shaft. It seemed to be the right size, right fit for our center console, and the thing is just unbelievable. We were able to put it into the test in a variety of sea conditions. We found that, anything, a consistent 2 to 4 foot chop, as long as the wind isn't super, super gusty, we were not moving. Like our position did not change throughout the day, throughout a tide change. It really was, or is, truly incredible. So just a couple of things. We gave this thing a full season before, we wanted to give a testimonial for it. There's a lot of different, crazy products on the market. Technology's come a long way, and, we really want to see if this thing could hold up to our charter season and the elements up here in the Northeast. And it really impressed us. So we installed the motor ourselves, just Taylor, myself, and our new mate, Ben, kid that worked for us in the 2022 season and hopefully will be with us for years to come. We installed it ourselves. We decided to go with a 36 volt lithium battery. It's lighter than lead acid. It requires less storage space. You don't need as many batteries. And we're actually able to get 12 plus hours of runtime before we needed to charge, which is crazy. We charge every day after each trip, but if we had doubles or double inshore trips or anything like that, we really didn't have to worry about it. So some of the situations and really benefits that we found of using a spot lock trolling motor, GPS anchor, trolling motor, specifically Rodan, where tide changes, there's no swing. So if you have several hundred feet of anchor line and you're positioned on a piece of bottom, there's really no movement. There is no movement at all on a tide change, so you can stay in the sweet spot for longer. The other thing is wind against tide. So, when they're opposite each other, it's hard to send baits out. We have little tricks that we use to try to get baits away from the boat in that situation, but it's often difficult, and many times you're only fishing or able to fish one rod. So with the trolling motor anchor, on the center console, we could still fish 3 rods off the bow and have a full spread, and it helped us get more bites. Absolutely. Both inshore and offshore. The support, I think, is the most impressive and most important thing with Rodan. Salt water is a harsh environment. Charter fishing, you're beating your equipment up pretty good. I'm sure any other charter captains listening to this can attest to that. Everything breaks, and you got to fix a lot of stuff yourself in order to, keep going through the season and keep going trip to trip. So, if we ever had an issue, which we had a couple of minor wear and tear issues, Rodan overnighted us parts. Their support is unbelievable. Easy to fix and modify things on your own. Just a great product. So. We wanted to give a honest testimonial of the product, and we're really impressed. So if you're interested in adding a Rodan to your boat for this next season, you can visit rodanmarine.com, and you'll see the entire lineup of their trolling motors and GPS anchors, all different shaft lengths, voltages, and we think you'll be impressed. So check them out. It will definitely be a game changer in the way that you fish on anchor. So I think that's kind of a good segue into you. So, we've known you a little bit through the grapevine. We've run into each other at shows, shot the shit, told a few sea stories. But kind of Reader's Digest for us and the listeners, kind of how you got into fishing, but then more specifically, like the programs that you're focusing on now and the areas that you're fishing now. So my name is Seth Funt, and I got a serious fishing problem.
That's a great intro.
Yeah.
I grew up in a little town called Stony Brook, New York. And in my backyard, we had this area called Conscience Bay, which was like a tributary to Port Jeff Sound fed into Long Island Sound. So I grew up, I got pictures like me and my little brothers when we were like 4 years old, 2 years old, infants, just like harvesting killies and minnows and crabs and shit out of the backyard, learning how to clam as a little kid. My dad had a boat. We kept it out in Montauk. And for my whole life, or I should say until I was, 18, 20 years old, every summer be out in Montauk. When it's your dad's boat, it's like whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Be bass, shark, some tuna fishing, an occasional canyon trip. And, we'd always hop on some other people's boats. But that was kind of the early beginnings of my fishing career. We were partners in a lobster boat business with a great family called the Carmans. Billy Carman, Roger Carman, Billy Carman, salt of the earth, one of the best dudes ever. Definitely, in my opinion, one of those dudes who just like, no one knows him, but it's taught me more about boat maintenance. And if you can't be good at that, you can't really
totally
climb the ladder, so to speak,
Yeah.
So give him a lot of credit. But Montauk was my beginnings. And during all that time, I fly fished, I bass fished, traveled to Florida, did all that kind of inshore junkie shit. Graduated college at Roger Williams and moved down to Florida.
Lax bro, right? You're a lacrosse guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Or on another podcast.
But when I got down to Florida, studying for my real estate license, and I remember making this, this was like before the age of like internet was really, there was no forums or anything to really talk on yet. So I made this page with a bunch of cutouts with my phone number at the bottom, and I went to the local West Marine in Miami, and I punched it up on the job postings board, and I get a call from this dude, Neil Preston, who ran a little boat down in it was like right on the Miami kind of Key Largo area. And he's like, yeah, looks like you got a lot of cool pictures. Let's fish. So he introduced me to kite fishing. And from there, got to fish with some of the greats in the kite fishing industry before it was ever a thing. It was really specific to like the Keys and Miami, and really no one else had really started doing it yet. And that gave me a totally different foundation. Live bait, cast netting. I can't tell you like how big of a lack of like in the Northeast when I compare the two. It's like bait fishing is so centric to your success, and if you can't be good at dialing in the bait, you'll never be good at really dialing the fishery. So in the Keys, it was all about the bait, the ballyhoo, the pilchards, the goggle eyes and all that stuff, and sardines. And my folks had bought a place down in West Palm Beach, moved the boat down to Palm Beach, and my brother and I kind of took some time and started working the docks at Sailfish Marina as mates on boats. And of course, one opportunity leads to another. You work your way down the line. If you fish with some good captains, you're invited to fish with other people, and then that leads to other opportunities. But the constant thing there is you have to have a passion for what you're doing, right? So it really shows that if you're really, you're the first one there and the last one to leave, and focused all day, that allows doors to open up for you to go to bigger and better places. So my folks' house down there, we have a neighbor, Dave Anderson, who's got a boat called the Crazy Salts, and Captain Keith Greenberg is, in my opinion, probably the best sailfish blue marlin fisherman on the planet today, as far as fishing in our local waters for Bahamas and Florida. And yes, he has his influences, but for me, the way he runs the cockpit, the way he ran his operation was from years of fishing with people that were better than him. And, all these things kind of trickle through and you put your own spin on it. But to see sport fishing done at the highest level with unlimited boats, with unlimited funds for whatever it takes to go be as successful as you need to be, if you fish with a few of those programs, you get to see things in a different way. When there's just unlimited budgets for things. What works, what doesn't work, where's a waste of money, where's your money better spent?
Right.
And the common thread through every one of those programs is hard work, dedication, no fucking around.
Yeah.
We have a purpose, and that's to be the best at something.
Yeah.
And you can't let drugs, alcohol, drama, bullshit get in the way of that. And I also have a tremendous amount of respect for people that find that balance between family and fishing, because fishing can rule your life.
100%.
And so can everything else, and it's just, it's finding a balance. And I definitely think that that's the common thread with all the greatest programs on the planet. You got to have somebody who's funding it, obviously. They got to enjoy it enough to fund it. But when you peel back all the tape and you really look at the captain, the mate, whoever else is part of that operation, for the most part, the passion and the seriousness, it's all there. That's the common thread through all this.
Yeah.
You gotta be obsessed.
Yeah.
You gotta be sick.
Yeah, obsessed, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even some guys who get most of the attention, everyone learned it from somewhere else.
Totally.
Right.
Everyone learns. I don't
Always.
care who you are. You know, there's this trickle down, and it's kind of funny that you talk to some of these old timers. They're like, "Oh, these kids don't know." I'm like, these kids know more than you knew at that age, because there's more information for us available. You know,
It's easy to get it too.
if you want to learn how to rig a ballyhoo, go watch 50 videos on YouTube. You're gonna learn how to rig a ballyhoo.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but the guys who are rigging them the best aren't making the videos. But you got to start.
You got to
somewhere.
do it. Yeah, you got to start somewhere. You can catch a million fish with watching YouTube and applying it, but
I agree with that.
to do better,
I agree.
You got to fish.
I would say you can get like 80% there, because
Right.
then there's the time.
That's a big
There's
jump,
the timing. Like, you can rig a ballyhoo, but if you can't rig the right amount and the right size ballyhoos and kind of translate that into the type of
Where to
fishing you're
put
gonna,
'em in the
like
spread.
that's the 20% that makes that 50% difference.
Oh, there's a little trick on ballyhoo that you'll never see in any video. It's like where the fins stop and the tail starts, and if you're squeezing the spine to kind of get them limber, there's a little spot where you lift the tail up about 20 degrees.
Break it.
No, that just makes him really swim true.
Oh, by actually straightening.
Yeah,
it more.
lifting it
Yeah,
up.
There's that little spot in the tail where you just like kind of give it a 20 degree little crack up,
It's a good tip.
and that really just makes the bait plane out. But you know, you got to rig thousands of baits to get to that point.
Yeah.
I like to take
to just feel it.
the tail too and really spread the
Yeah,
tail out,
fan
so
the
the
tail
tail
out.
itself actually wants to drag like a shad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, pull that bait.
But you know, over my career, I've got to fish with some absolutely unbelievable operations, and I always think it's really key that, you know, when you get an opportunity to go fish on other people's boats, you've just got to be a learner and a listener and a helper and try and, you know, this one captain it was in a job interview, and in the job interview, he gets asked the question, like, what do you think's the most important thing about a great captain? And he stopped and he thought, and his answer was, he has to be able to see into the future. And it's like, that's really an interesting answer. Like, well, explain that. And he's like, well, if everyone's sick, you got to have enough, you know, wherewithal to say, like, okay, we're going home.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't going to be fun. But more or less, like, the bite's really hot right now, but in 20 minutes, it's going to stop. Now we need to make our move. You need to be able to think about what's going to happen next and make that move so you can be there first on site for whatever's going to be next. And I always think about that. I always think about what's going to happen in the future. Where is this going? When is the bite slowing? Where do we need to move to? But, you know, a lot of people have a lot to learn from other people. And I always think, you know, I have great admiration for Larry Dahlberg, because I always come back to some of the discussions we've had together, which are, you know, never stop learning. Don't get content with what you've achieved. There's always more to do. There's always another way to do it. There's always other things to learn. You can always take something from somewhere else and apply it to whatever you're doing. And I'll give you an example. Like in the sport fishing world right now, this would be a great article, and I don't think it's written enough about, but it's like some of the sailboat, tackle, rigging, rollers, you see now really making a swing into the sport fishing world, where it's like how they move halyard lines. Things and the ways that they rig are working their way into sport fishing boats. And if you really, really look, you can find it in the high-end operations. But, you know, like fly fishing, you know, like these flies, you know. I learned how to fly tie when I was a kid. And, you know, it's just come back to like that Larry thing, you know. It's just like, you know, that little, you know, what does everyone use? Like a little rubber squid in front of their baits. You know, like, well, let's reimagine that. How do we make this look realer? How do we give ourselves more confidence?
Yeah.
It's just a confidence builder, you know? And I just,
They're sweet.
I just think it's all about, you know, getting your level of confidence up and having a lot of tools at your disposal. And you learn a lot from a lot of different operations. So don't stop learning. Don't stop growing. You're never there. You know, even the best.
Always learning.
Yeah, always learning. Always learning. Look at things different.
Every year. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. You know, I said before, like one of my best friends is Lou DeFusco. And Lou always does like an adventure trip. We're going to Panama. He just sent me a thing. It was just like, I don't know. It was somewhere in Africa. He's like, yo, dude, let's go do Seychelles. Let's go do Egypt. Let's go do some crazy shit. But, you know, you need to do those trips. You need to get outside your comfort box and see things a different way sometimes to kind of come back and re-examine the way you're doing things.
And you got to dream. Like, you know, you want to travel to a place, like you work hard enough and talk to enough people. It's crazy how quick you realize how small the fishing network is. Then all of a sudden you're like shooting the shit daily with someone in the destination location you want to go.
Yeah.
You know, just being a people person's important, learning from everyone, to your point, learning from your elders, but also learning from the new generation. Like there's, you know, shit I'm still learning from kids that are 15 years younger than me, you know?
Yeah. You can always learn.
Yeah. What's something that you learned from another country or whatever that you've applied? Say, look, most of our listeners are Northeast listeners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's something from down south that, you know, you've applied up here recently that may have given you an edge on something?
So some guys are doing it. It's going to start catching on and be more of a bigger thing. You're going to start to see it more of a staple in the coming years for the guys who really want to kind of like, how do we make our spread look better? Not enough guys up here dredge fish. And I don't care if you're pulling mullets. I don't think really natural baits make a lot of sense up in the Northeast for tuna fishing, just because, you know, you're going to lose the whole thing. One pack of eyeballs. But I do think that giving, you know, if you think about it like this, those fish aren't milling around on the surface all day. Those fish are down 100 feet, down kind of somewhere where the light starts to dissipate, and they can be more of a natural predator. You know, they're looking up and they see this boat. They're not going to see, you know, they're going to see some bars, but it's not really that impressive. Even if you got 6 or 7 bars out there, it's making a lot of noise, and you got some color, but you need to get something like a ball of shit that's substantial enough to get them to come and take a closer look. And maybe I think, you know, I definitely think like flap dredges, rubber, something that's going to be
profiles.
Dredges, dredge fishing, watching fish come to a dredge. You get to learn how fish approach a bait and take the bait, whether it's billfish or wahoo or tuna or mahi or whatever. They're going to come to the dredge and then they're going to fade off and eat a bait. Yeah. So when you start dredge fishing, you're going to learn more about how the fish are feeding that particular day quicker. Tunas, I definitely think that trolling dredges is a huge advantage. You know,
we're always trolling dredges when we fish the canyons.
Yeah.
Huge.
You know, there's a lot of tournaments that we've done. There's not a lot of guys that are.
And how many tiers on the dredge?
Usually
it depends.
Artificial
squids,
single tier,
we'll have a lot of baits.
Long drops,
you know, 50,
a lot of baits,
60
tight
baits.
so they aren't tangling upon deployment.
So I like 3 tier. You do 6 arms, two loops on the top. The next one, 6 arms, 1 loop. The next one, 6 arms, 1 loop, half the size. So it's just like a chandelier.
Yeah.
And I
massive
think,
profile.
Yeah, huge profile.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get something to get the whole herd up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it sucks when you go out there and you're tuna fishing. It's like 1 rod. You know, maybe you get another one. But I feel like there's just that situation could have been converted into an all rod bend so much easier if you just had enough shit in the water to get the herd to come up.
Yeah.
And take a look.
Just shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And it also allows you to see how aggressive they're being.
Yeah.
You know, like if they're coming in and eating flat lines off the dredge hard, like probably everything's going to get bit. And you know that they're in feed mode. And then all of a sudden, if it's like a single trickle on the long, even with the dredges out, you're like, we're not doing anything wrong. They're just really not biting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. One thing we do, I haven't seen a lot of it done here, but it's definitely big in my mantra, which is we always have a pitch bait ready. Not so much for billfish, but I have this cool video on Instagram somewhere. It's like a tuna laying on the deck, and all these squid are in the live well looking through the tank at the tuna. Fuck you. Yeah. But I always keep one of those squid like ready to go, hooked up, and it's like everything goes off. Fire out a bait, open the bail, just let it go, clear your shit.
And how often do you get bites?
Like I said, I might get a bite 1 or 2 times out of 10.
That's still sick.
But it's like, another fish that we wouldn't have normally got.
Yeah. Awesome. Make or break a trip.
Yeah. I mean, if you sit and you watch footage, rod goes off, shit gets cleared. Everyone's just hanging up. Put somebody on the bow, fucking flatlining some shit down at 100 feet.
Yeah.
They're all together. In the Bahamas, we learned that when you're trolling, and we're trolling for yellowfins, sometimes it's almost impossible to get the yellowfin to come up and eat a bait. What you've got to do is hook a skippy and let him dump the reel back down into the spool, clear the spread, start reeling in the skippy slow, and he's coming up like this, And as he comes up to the surface, all the other fish are kind of like, what's going on over there? It's like an attractor,
Yeah.
He's going to go back to the herd and bring the herd to you.
Yeah.
So I've always thought about.
I wonder if you could do that with other fish.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, listen, yellowfins aren't just like they're not just out there by themselves. There's a herd of them. You hooked one. What happened?
Yeah.
Now you're back on the troll again. It's like, I don't know, man. Maybe you hook one and stop and start jigging. Just start chunking. Start just. Lou and I had a sick trip this year. It was the best trip ever. We get out there. I think I put like a Grateful Dead song on it too. But we get out there and it's a fucking terrible, shitty day. Like no boats are out there. It was a horrible run out there. We got like 2 bars out. Like, fuck, we're going on like a 10-knot chug down sea just to get to where the fish have been. We're looking for whales. Conditions are terrible. And like, boom, one of the bars gets hit. And we like reel all the shit in, and like Lou's looking at the sounder. He's like, dude, I'm marking some shit like mid-depth. And like we just, like I said, like we got those rods ready to go. Get a couple jig rods, couple pop rods, couple Ron Z rods, couple chunk rods. It's all there. And what's my favorite approach? I don't know. In that situation, it just seemed like, fuck, let him fight the fish. And why don't we just jig for a little while we're all just waiting for this thing to come in. We ended up catching 12 yellowfin all in the 90-pound class. Every single one was on the jig, and every single one was like 1 pulse off the bottom.
It's insane.
What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What the fuck? I mean, it's not like we went out there intending to jig.
Yeah.
We just went out there prepared for whatever it's going to happen and just read it and,
I could definitely think of some times you should have done something like that.
Oh, yeah. 1,000,000%.
I definitely think having 2 jig rods out on the sides, and as soon as you get bit, fire the jig.
Yeah.
Just drop the jig in the water, lock the bail, put it down. Same thing with a Ron Z, like a jig and a Ron Z, and clear the spread. But at least you got more baits fishing.
Totally.
And I do think when you're fighting fish, it's motion creates commotion.
Yeah. Yeah, just thinking like those single big eye bites or double big eye bites where they're kind of like, they only eat the long riggers.
Yeah.
Why not fire some other shit out?
Back to your skipjack comment and strategy. I think a big part of that too, like, say you pull the skippy out of what's clearly like a school of bait on the sounder, you're doing your whole let them out, pull them back up from the school. I think a lot of that bite is the bait dispersing because they're spooked by whatever bait fish you're putting in or taking out. Like all of a sudden it's like, boom, they can pinpoint that one bait because everything's scattered for a split second for them to see that bait. Like we see with bass fishing and the pogies, even like on anchor, giant tuna fishing with herring and stuff. How many times do we get a bite when you just like literally walk, like you got herring pinned, it's 10 feet off the bottom. You're like, I know there's a tuna here. And then you let a bait out 5 feet, or you take one crank on it. You just hold the tether on the down rod to see if you can feel the vibration, make sure that he's still swimming. You put it back and wham, you're on.
Yeah.
Because you're just creating enough separation from the bait for them to see it.
So what you said is really interesting because like when I'm sword fishing, one of my biggest tricks is like always be moving the baits.
Yeah.
Up, down, just constantly blowing up, emitting light, moving, motion. That stuff's really important.
It is. And you don't want to overdo it. Like you have to read the situation, like you're saying. Like I'm not just going to constantly reel a down rod herring up and down because he's going to drown.
Time and place for everything.
Yeah, time and place for everything. But I think that makes it, when you're fishing in the bait, at times it makes a really big difference. Like that one with Dad, like herring was pinned. It was like false bottom, reading like maybe a foot or 2 off the bottom. We marked 1 arc right on it on the bottom. Like he's got that shit in a puck on the bottom. Smash the weight into the mud, pull it up 8 feet. That herring disperses. the only herring that's left there on the bottom is that one tuna fish. And a lot of the times that pocket of herring might only be 100 yards around your boat, and then whammo, you're on. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Just watching the bass and the pogies. You know, you snag a pogie, or you're dropping down a dead pogie in the school trying to get a bass.
Yeah.
So many, almost all the bites. It's like when your shit disperses that bunch of bait. You know, when you're ripping it up through the school, like we were taking the dead ones, dropping to the bottom, basically reeling as fast as we can up 10 feet, and the school pocket would just open up, and then we just let it free fall, and it was, you were on.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't get a lot of bites otherwise because they can't see the fucking bait.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
It's too much.
Too much.
It is.
So moving baits this is a perfect segue to one of my questions, actually, moving baits. What are 3, it could be tactics, could be items, do you use or bring with you or whatever, deep dropping for swordfish that you think gives you a huge edge on everybody else?
Always fresh lights.
Fresh lights. I would have never thought of that.
Fresh lights. So
Like, you're talking the water activated small little lights.
oh yeah, like you know, they have a built-in battery.
Yeah.
It's got a life on it. You use it. It's the strongest when it first goes on, and then it kind of slowly tapers down. And I think if you're going to put the time and effort into going out and doing it, I think it's like $20 a light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fresh lights every time, for sure.
Really?
Interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Fresh lights.
It's good
Makes a big difference.
Really? Now, are you using like diamond lights, or do you use like the cheapo ones you can buy in big bags? Have you seen a difference?
Oh, dude.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
I mean, it's like, listen, you can go out and buy fluorocarbon, but I don't fish with you guys, but I will bet you anything. There's one brand you fish, and there's probably 1 or 2 sizes you fish.
Yes.
And you won't even consider anything else.
No.
Correct.
Okay. So same thing with the lights. It's like
Okay.
somebody figured out how to make them cheaper using cheaper elements. They kind of look the same. A lot of times they'll step on a boat, and you know, if I'm going sword fishing with somebody else, this is like a few things I'm going to bring, like a couple of my own wine on leaders, fresh lights, and certain hooks, and fresh bait. You know, it's oh, what do you got? Oh, I got all this. Free pre-rigged baits, you know. Wind-on's always too heavy. No fresh lights. And I think, like, getting back to that thing, extra 20% effort,
Yeah.
50% of the time it'll pay off.
Yeah.
So 3 things. Fresh lights. Always fresh baits. Always. Never go out there with frozen baits, ever. At least I don't. And the third would definitely be like fresh leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, how often do you guys, do you use the same giant tuna leader the whole season?
No.
Every day we put
Change
new leaders.
2 to
every
3
trip.
days.
Every trip.
Yeah.
2 days if it's like
If it doesn't get bit
Yeah.
and you can clean it off, like,
Right.
you might fish it once or twice, but after a trip or two, you're going to put it in a bag and save it for a shark.
save it, question mark.
For-
Yeah.
Release day, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that shit's
Same thing.
expensive.
Yeah.
You know, what are you paying? $100 for 25 yards?
Yeah.
Maybe less. You get a deal on it, but
Yeah.
you know, it's expensive shit.
It is.
Well, you're gonna go sword fishing. Like, you need fresh leader or learn how to tie your own.
Yeah.
for sure. But fresh leaders, fresh lights, and fresh bait. That
Fresh lights.
because for me, it's a confidence thing. If I put baits down and I don't feel confident, I like, I'm not into it.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I've taken out every fuck up that can happen, and I'm presenting the best baits that I can possibly present, then I'm fully engaged. And I just feel like when you're mentally feel like I couldn't have done anything more perfect,
Right.
it just seems like it happens more often when you're fully focused.
And you're willing to take more risks. If you know those things are perfect, you know they're not biting. You're willing to move. You're willing to, you know, try different structure.
Instead of
whatever.
having to prove
Instead
that
of
out.
just fucking sitting there with the same old shit, doing the same drift all day long.
Yeah, and you know, I was also thinking, just to kind of wrap that question, there's not a big enough network of guys doing it up here. Like where we are, there's like 100 guys that are pretty good. But it's like pretty quickly you can like plug into, are they biting? Are they not?
Yeah.
Time of day? Okay, that's all I need to know. I'm gonna go to my spots, and they're gonna be there or they're not. But up here, it's like, it's kind of an afterthought. It's like, yeah, let's go try this for an hour. It's like, no, fuck that. Do it from sunrise to sunset. Then we know if they bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Or when they bid. Or,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when you're giant tuna fishing, same thing. You're there.
Oh, it's all about time.
And you're
Yeah.
there until sunset.
Yeah.
Or you're there until you get a bite. And at any minute, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Same shit, except you're 100 miles offshore.
Yep.
You know, but back home for us, it's 20 miles, so it's a 30-minute run.
Yeah, that's
so awesome.
Yeah, you get good at shit
Jealous.
quick when you
Yeah.
can do it all the time.
When it's that accessible.
Yeah.
So talking about back home and all that, what does your fishing season look like now? Like you have the new Ross built, you're fishing with your son, getting him into offshore fishing. Kind of take us through your year, or you can even go through last year if you want, whatever's easiest for you.
It's kind of crazy because I definitely had like a big life transition with, COVID hit, and we had a summer house up in Rhode Island. And, my wife and I were building our Airbnb business, buying a bunch of stuff, getting that all fine-tuned. And COVID hit, and the whole homeschool thing just like completely overwhelmed us. And it was like, oh my God, man, these are like the most formidable years with our kids, and it's difficult, like I'm not an educator.
Yeah.
So to be stuck home with 2 kids with nothing to do and nowhere to go, it's like you have to reimagine life a little bit. And I always try to look at it through the life of like, what's fun for my kids? So anyway, summer came to an end of 2021, and kids were going back to school August 12th. And I look at my wife and I'm like, I don't want to leave. Like giant fishing's about to start. All this cool stuff's about to happen and we're having a great time. Why don't we just stay? So at that blink of an eye and blink of a moment, we were like, all right, fuck it. Let's move up here. But for me, it was more like, when I was in Florida, kids, my nucleus, Florida. I mean, all that's really shifted for me is now the nucleus is Rhode Island, but I'm still in Florida. I'm traveling to Florida. I'm still have my operations, still have stuff going on. I'm just a little bit more hands-on with our Airbnb and our lodge up here. So let me walk you through a normal season. So we'll start in January, right? So January is like prime time for us in Florida for sailfish, wahoo, deep dropping in the Bahamas. So I would say that the majority of my time in January is you're playing the weather windows, you're watching the cold fronts, you're fishing, the sailfish tournaments in January. On the calm days, you're making that run to the Bahamas for wahoos. February, you kind of getting bored of the same stuff that you've been doing for the month of January. And you're starting to already start thinking ahead to March, which is going to be that spring transition where we get this, even though we have great weather there, we still have like seasonal fisheries. So the sailfish start to slow down a little bit. Kingfish start to heat up. Mahi fishing starts to heat up. We're starting to really get, the gear ready to do Bahamas tuna fishing. So January, February, sail fishing, Bahamas. We get into like March and April. Now we're really kind of fine tuning, Bahamas weather windows. Wind's going to start shifting around more to the east. Now we're looking at places like, Chub in the Bahamas. We're looking at areas that have like these, you can go and slam out, white or blue a sail in a day. And you pretty much do it every day.
Yeah.
So in the springtime, we start to, and I always like to try to get my shit ready a month in advance. Because I don't like to get to a place and have to re-spool reels and make leaders. And I'm doing that at night for fun when the kids go to bed. Like watching a game, tying leaders, making rigs, making flies, whatever it is. I feel like my gear is dialed in.
Maximizing your time.
So that's March. April, May, we're rolling out Bahamas tuna and long-range Bahamas trips. So, chub, walkers, abacos, shit like that, like far send trips.
That's
120
cool.
miles
Some
each
beautiful
way.
spots there.
Yeah. May. Now, we're starting to get ready for the Northeast. So May, really, May and June up here is going to be, for us, bass, squid, blackfish. I definitely think we have a push of giants that come in June.
Oh, yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of always like have the gear ready to go.
Right.
Anything can happen in June.
I mean, down by you guys, probably get them in May. You can't kill them, obviously, but you could probably find them in May. We've got them in May on the bank before.
Yeah.
In years past. So.
Tough. They're moving though.
Oh yeah.
They're in, they're out, offshore and
Got
shore.
a troll.
So I mean, pretty much down here, it's pretty quiet. There's not much going on in the Northeast in the winter and in the spring. Mm-hmm. It's pretty quiet. But, you know, in Florida, things start to slow down for us there. Like, I would say by June, summer weather's starting to set in. If I was staying in Florida, that would be more of the times where we would be doing fun trips with the family to the Bahamas to go snorkeling for lobster and conch and
Sweet.
you know, yellowtail and Kubera snapper fishing. But, you know, the last couple of years, our summers have really been dedicated to the Northeast. So it's like June, July, August, September, balls to the wall tuna fishing.
Yeah.
Balls to the wall canyon trips, all things Northeast,
Yep.
you know, until the fall time. This year, you know, we giant fished all the way through until like pretty much like a week before Christmas. I think Robbie and I had a 60-inch fish like right before I left for Florida, which was like December 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
You know, and he let it go, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro? Like, we're never gonna see it."
That's Christmas sushi, baby.
Dude. Oh, it was
December
so
was
funny.
pretty good.
It was me,
Straight
Tristan,
up
and
here.
Robbie, and it was fucking freezing, right? I remember thinking to myself, like, dude, if this boat takes on water, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Right? Thankfully, Smalley was right next to us.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, we just got tight. Why didn't we kill that fucking thing? He's like, 'cause we can't kill a giant if we catch a giant. And I'm like, dude, Robbie, are you out of your fucking mind, dude? Like,
It's December.
didn't you not get the memo? The fucking season's way over, dude. Those things are up the Carolinas by now.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So then it just kind of loops all over again, you know? Up here, it's just, you know, I definitely think I'm super stoked for Louis this year. Louis just got a new 39 CV.
That's sick.
Totally redoing the boat. It's going to be a project boat redone in Stewart by Tribute.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking ridiculous.
It's awesome.
So I'm super stoked that he's got that going on. Robbie's repowering this year, so we'll have fresh wheels on the boat. And then we got the Ross boat. So I think, you know, my little nucleus is always changing, but at the same time, we always got some cool shit going on.
That's cool.
You know, would love to fish with you guys.
Oh, I'd love to fish with you too.
You know, have you do a canyon
Never
run.
fished
with
down
me.
there.
I'd love to do a canyon run and a Bahamas run. I've never gone to the Bahamas. My wife's uncle lives down in Tequesta area in Florida, and he was a marine insurance guy for a long time, and he's got like hundreds of crossings and just speaks the world about it.
For us, it's like from like Tequesta, which is like the Jupiter area.
Yeah.
To where we are, it's like 58 nautical miles. And you boom, like passport clearing into another country.
So cool.
Yeah. And then as you go down south, this last trip I did, we left out of Bimini and went down to like Cat Island and fished that whole southern chain, which I'm not a big fan of. But
If you couldn't bounce back and forth, where would you like to be full time all year?
I don't think I could ever be, I would always be bouncing.
Yeah.
I could never, you know, you know, dude, like back to the Larry thing. It's like, you know, now being able to rediscover fishing through the eyes of my son,
Totally.
who's a 10-year-old and super obsessed with it. It's like, how do I craft that to not create a monster, but create a monster?
Yeah.
So he's really into trout fishing, and he's really into bass fishing, and he's super into cod fishing and giant fishing. You know, dude, it was really funny. We went down to Florida for Christmas, and we like go and hit some of our spots that we hit. And like on his third cast, he catches this like 12-pound snakehead. And he was more jacked up about that than the tuna. And
sure.
I was just like,
I would be too.
this kid's fucked because he's done too much too quick.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to just like totally rediscover fishing through the eyes of a little kid and mentor him through, you know, what a great asset this is for an individual to have in their life. Because like you, like me, like all of our friends, it shapes our life.
Yep.
Our life is around weather windows. Our life is around the chase. Our life is around the prep. These are the things that like make us get up in the morning and be stoked to live, you know?
Totally.
And it's like, you know, a lot of people go through life and they just don't have passion. But I can tell, you know, it's like when somebody has a passion for something, there's that connection. There's that like, yo, we're friends. We don't know each other, but we're fucking boys for life.
Yeah.
And that's that energy that I think is really, you know, unique with fishing that that I tend to just love being around. You know, it's good energy. You know, everyone that I do business with, all the people, all my contractors, all my insurance people, all whatever it is I do in life, the common thread is fishing. Because it's like,
It's awesome.
yeah, I mean, you know, that's, you know, not many people get that gift, but it's like if you can nurture it and you can have that passion for it and go after it, it's awesome.
There's not many things really in life that you could do that you're that bonded with. I mean, I guess hunting and fishing are really the two things.
You could do it with anything, but just fishing it's just endless. You know, like you're never going to master it. No one is ever going to master it. So there's just this like common understanding.
That's what Larry was saying. He's like, dude, once you've mastered something, fucking move on.
Yeah.
Not move on from the fishery, but move on from the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Finding the next keyhole. What's the next thing? I don't know. Maybe that's putting baits down 100 feet.
That's the trip we should all do. Is the midwater drifting trip.
Stay out there for a week.
Find an owner that wants to put in some serious time out there for like a week and just get a rowdy crew to
Discover some things.
It'd be awesome. That actually kind of dovetails something I was thinking about. Kind of a random question, but we're talking about crew being a well-oiled machine, the extra 20% that brings you 50%, you know, success throughout trips. If you could put together your dream canyon crew.
Oh God. He's gonna have to make decisions here.
I know. It might cause a little drama, whatever, but if you could put together your dream fishing crew, you know, captain, couple mates, yourself, and 2 anglers, let's say. Captain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6-person crew, and one of the anglers has to be a celebrity. Who are you picking? Captain, mates, celebrity angler.
Where am I fishing?
Canyons. Say canyon trip, like double overnighter. You're going there to try to catch as many species as possible. Who do you want on the boat with you?
I have a lot of respect for Mark DeCavia.
Yeah.
I feel like Mark's a salty dude.
I'd be scared to go on the boat with him.
I would.
I have a lot of respect for Mark. Mark does well. I love being with Lou. I feel like Lou reads water better than anyone on the planet. Mm-hmm. So I would put Lou as captain. Okay. Robbie Taylor, just because he's fucking Robbie.
Just to gaze at that beard all day.
You need the beard.
Mike Feudy.
Mike Feudy. I don't know if I know him.
Mike's one of our contractor buddies, but like when I look at a perfect crew, not everyone needs to be doing the same fucking thing. You need dudes who are just like seeing into the future.
Yeah.
Cleaning when you're not asking them to do it. Fucking organizing shit.
Yeah.
You know, just you need those dudes who are just like workers, pleasant to be around, and just, you know, contributors. Because we all have those people that are like great fishermen, but then it's like comes time to split the bills up and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So putting together a great crew is like, you know, I used to run the Under Armour demo boat with this dude named Arik Bergerman, who is from the Israeli defense. Every dude on that boat was a Marine. And what was really interesting about the way that they would attack a tournament is everyone had a job. The jobs don't all overlap. Do your job, right? So, and it's really interesting approach because it's like, listen, I don't have enough time to make food. I don't have enough time to ice boat. I don't have enough time to do that shit. Just let me focus on my shit. Let the captain focus on his shit. You need those workers, those guys behind you that can carry the load that makes the trip doable. Who else would I take?
So we got Lou, Mark, Mike, you said?
Mike Feudy. For me, you know, Michael Grant, my Grant's my photographer, my co-writer on everything. You know, we've kind of, you know, been best friends for 20 years. And, you know, you reach a point in your fishing life where it's just like, okay, you're getting better. And then all of a sudden it takes off because you're doing it with the right people. For me, Mike is like that dude who is like the utilitarian. Whatever you bring, he's going to bring like 5 suitcases of shit with like something for anything that could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like anything, you know, like it's crazy. But you know, like you guys pack for trips, you know, get your shit. You go tuna fishing, you get hooks, rubber bands, whatever, right?
You always have like a whole mate's, you know, arsenal.
Dude, his arsenal is fucking retarded. Tackle store. You know what I mean? They're biting Rapala X wraps. I brought 12 in every color. You're like, yeah, Mike. You know, what are they biting on this? Well, all right, Mahi, what do you want to catch them on?
Mike's got it.
I like this
just
guy
open up that bag and he's got leader in every size, swivels in every size, backup crimps, backup crimpers. Like, you know, that kind of person in a crew is crucial because it's like I said, you know, getting back to all these different techniques, you know, on that jig bite, Mike busts out a bag. He's like, what color you want? Literally got fucking bags of shit. You're like, give me yellow and blue. Pulls out 5 different sizes. What size do you want of that?
What shade yellow do you want?
Do you want like a banana yellow or do you want like
chartreuse
yellow?
Yeah, you guys know what it's like. You know, it doesn't matter what fucked. I mean, they're not biting the dock today.
Yeah.
They're biting, I don't know, some obscure lure.
Yeah.
He's got 10 of them.
Yeah.
And it's just
amazing.
You know, when you're packing the boat up, it's like, what the fuck is all this shit?
Yeah.
And you put it away and I can't tell you how many times some shit, you know, you get a tangle, right? Captain makes a turn, whatever, something happens, makes a turn to avoid something, collision with something. All right, whatever. Shit gets tangled up, comes in the boat, 5 rods out of the spread. Well, now what?
Yeah.
You got to re-rig real quick. You know, just being able to be on the fly. And I always find my best days of fishing, always, at some point in time, have some major fucking obstacle that we have to get over.
Dude,
mentally.
We say this all the time.
Like every podcast, I think. If you're not like, well, with giant fishing with us, if you're not like pissed off at something isn't
Probably
going
not gonna happen.
perfectly smooth, you're either gonna, if it's perfectly smooth, you're definitely gonna hook a fish, but you're gonna lose it, or you're just not gonna hook a fish at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's catastrophic, or like that day we broke down and drove all the way to the bank, all the way back home from the bank, and then drove all the way back out to the bank.
And then caught the only tuna.
Caught the only tuna on the bank at like 40 boats.
Yeah. Dude, it's Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
It really is.
Something fucking absolute retarded has to happen on the boat. You know what I mean? Lining the prop, some shit. You spend 30 minutes getting it out, and everyone's like, fuck this, let's go home.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that was your best day.
Yeah.
You know, because you overcame
Always.
the obstacle.
Totally. It is.
So just, you know, mentally being able to just
funny.
know that this is coming, and at some point down the road, we're going to be bailing water out of something.
So you got 3 people, right? We had 3 so far?
He's at
Before
himself,
including you.
Lou, Mark, Mike. I think we're at celebrity angler at this point.
And one other person.
And one
right?
other person.
Celebrity angler.
I can't pick one. I'm bad with
dude,
it.
Larry Dahlberg would be pretty badass.
Larry Dahlberg
I consider
would
him
be-
a celebrity.
Yeah,
angler,
for sure.
I mean, he's what started really like making tackle for me, honestly.
I'd like to take Ken Frazier to the canyons.
Oh, dude, that'd be sick.
Yeah. That would
You
probably
know
be
what's
mine.
really unique about like what you guys have going on? You need to go to ICAST. And
Yeah.
you need to just
I've
like
been
walk up to all these
invited
people
so
that
many times.
just you know, like all these guys are at ICAST. If they're anybody, they're there. Right?
Yeah.
Here's who I am. Here's what I got going on.
Yeah.
Wanna do something? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wish it was in July.
I know it's tough.
sucks, but it is what it is. I
Worst
mean,
time.
Yeah.
It's to show if you want to be any, you know, phrase this the right way. If you want to be sponsored
Yeah.
by anybody or anything, or if you feel like you're worthy enough to, you know, what makes you sponsorable? What are you doing? How are you advancing the sport? How can you help us?
Right.
What shops do you influence? That's the show.
Yeah. That's the pinnacle of it all, is that place and being able to network and
3 days.
and
As
see
far as
it.
gear and
Yeah,
Go to the
for
Costa
sure.
party.
right.
Yeah.
You know, they're all going to be there.
Yep.
And you all have something to talk about. And guess what? You all have a passion. And that's the common thread. And I guarantee you, most of the dudes that are doing that stuff there are going to want to come and do that stuff here. And the stuff that, you know, that we do here, you know, I talk about the Bahamas and stuff. It's like, that's how those doors open up. That's the venue that it all happens. So, celebrity angler, yeah, Larry's definitely, you know, I was thinking more sports person, but
Oh, it could be anybody.
Yeah, it could be anybody. You just talk so highly of him he'd be cool. I love to fish with him too.
I'd like to take Theo Vaughn out on a trip. I don't know if you've seen him, his stand-up. He is just unbelievable.
Probably Dave Chappelle. No, I know who it would be. For me, it'd be Billy Strings.
Billy Strings?
Billy Strings.
Who's Billy
Why do
Strings? I
not
should
know?
know, and I don't.
Neither of us know Billy Strings.
If you guys like the dad, you like he's.
Oh yeah.
You know, Billy Strings is a guitar player.
Yeah.
He loves bass fishing, and we were at a show, and my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if you could take Billy?" And I was like, "I don't think Billy's gonna handle what we do." But to boil it down, we have an operation in Florida where, on the Florida side of things, when we get blown out on trips, Michael, one of my best friends, my writing partner, he's got an operation in the backyard where we do peacock bass, clown knife, largemouth, snakehead. And it's like a sick day of sometimes the best days of fishing aren't like these hardcore trips. They're just like laid back, have some nice food, put some barbecue on,
right.
And then we go bass fish. And we always,
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, but it's not live. It's not like dead bait traditional bullshit. Like we go out there, 12-foot cast nets, massive live well, black this thing out. And it's like, we're live chumming peacocks where it's almost to the point where it's like stupid. It's like 50 fish days per person.
Wow.
And you're just like, flinging them under the dock. I'm tight.
That's awesome.
It's so much fun, but it's such a rad way to have a lay day fishing trip.
We've been doing
some barbecue.
Not clown knife, not barbecue, but one of kind of our fisheries that we've become obsessed with for the fun factor and just the laid backness is shad fishing around here.
Oh yeah.
American shad. So we actually, one of the little tributaries that leads to the North River is like 5 minutes away. And I'm not giving the exact spot, but we just there's like small. There's like 5 of us that have been doing it.
Please tell me you bring those for stick baits.
We can't keep them, but they would be the most amazing.
We know people that have used them.
Yeah,
looks like
it's like a 4-pound herring basically. But it's poor man's tarpon. You're waiting. It's at night. Like everyone's just like shooting the shit, ball busting. Like you're lucky if you hook one a night.
500 casts.
500 casts. You hook one a night. Some nights you get 4 bites. It's just sometimes like you're saying, like you just need to you put so much extra 20% in all the time, and not that you don't on those fun trips. But
we're still trying really hard to catch shad.
Yeah, very competitive.
Right.
But it is nice to kind of have that like decompressed sort of day or tide or a couple hours fishing when your pinnacle is trying to catch a 700-pound swordfish in 2,000 feet of water, which requires the most insane logistics possible. It's nice to just be like, everyone meet at 9, bring a couple beers, 1 rod, and let's go.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure.
One of my favorite things in the whole world to do, right, is like get in my car and just drive around and hit different spots, checking different, especially when I'm like looking for bait. Mm-hmm. Like this whole fall when it was all about the bluefish. Robbie and I were talking about this. We have this project coming up with this cool company that's going to be making a product that's definitely going to be awesome for people that like the giant tuna fish, right? And getting in my car and just driving to beaches, driving little estuaries, looking for bluefish, having a tank in my back of the truck with a bubbler, like popping bluefish, putting them in the tank, transporting them to a holding tank, like fucking stupid. But it's like, for me, it's like, how deep
I don't think it's
to go. How deep are you willing to go for this?
Sometimes you need it. That's the only way you're gonna get bit.
Yeah. Man,
it's the only way you're gonna get bit. It's the only way you're gonna be able to pay to go out to fish to get bit. Like with the pogies and stuff, selling them, trading them, getting information. Like those crazy extra effort adventures pay off way more than you think.
Yeah.
That's the difference between
Yeah, being good and being really, really, really good.
The elite and the special.
Exactly.
Extra.
Totally.
So you can't keep... So Robbie and I were catching like hickory shads.
You can keep hickory shad, I believe, but you can't keep American shad. I believe they mingle and they mix when they're in the ocean, but then they, come upriver and spawn up here. They're not eating anything.
Do they have like a root beerish tint to them?
They're all...
Are they just real silvery?
They look very just like a herring. Like a herring. Just huge.
Yeah.
Their mouths are the same. You got to use no drag.
I did a tail print for Robbie, and it's got a hickory shad and a tail. And I remember that trip. We were out fishing the Cape, and like he opens up the live well, and of course it's like, well, what bait's he gonna pick? You know, you got a mackerel, you got bunker, you know, and of course that motherfucker just is like, oh yeah,
That's like an average size one.
oh yeah.
Imagine that on a stick as a stick bait.
You're catching them this big.
You could put like 12 ounces of lead, have no lead on the top shot. Like it would be ridiculous.
I know. Yeah, people have caught them on them.
Yeah,
We have never killed one.
Nope.
I brought back all these tanks from Florida, like 30 gallon, 60 gallon, 100 gallon, 200 gallon. Because I was going to tell you guys, we were talking about that lake behind the house. Like me and my kid, we used to have this lake behind our house in Florida. And like we would go, and it's totally illegal.
Let's talk about it.
No, you stock the lake. You know what I mean? I mean, they have lake
Someone else
stock
stocked this
program.
lake.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't do it, but I watched people do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, put peacocks and bass and clown knives in a spot, and, you know, they feed and they grow, and, you know.
Turns into something.
Yeah.
Turns into a little ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Stocking projects. But those transfer tanks are, like, you know, it's amazing when you can, like, go pop some bluefish that are like this big somewhere, go put them in the back of your truck in a tank, bubble them to the water.
Yeah.
Put them in the water,
There's a
and now you got
massive
baits.
business that no one does.
There is.
In Florida, it's huge.
Just getting
$120
in Florida,
a
I'm
dozen.
just talking about the Northeast and even mid coast, like
bait.
bait. I mean, there's a huge opportunity. You got to have a lot of money to get going with the right trucks and tanks and all that.
You got to go all in right off the rip to be able to.
You can
provide.
make some serious money figuring out. You know, imagine being able to pull up and selling bluefish from Maine all the way down to Rhode Island.
Yeah,
You need like a tanker truck.
Or herring. I don't know if you can sell herring.
No, I don't think you can possess. But
Mackerel, you probably can.
me and my brother, one time for a tournament, we got some blue runners in Palm Beach, put them in a U-Haul trailer and tanks, covered the tanks in ice, and drove them to Beaufort, North Carolina for an SKA tournament. I think it was like 700 miles, something, in a fucking U-Haul truck.
And they lived.
So we get to this tournament, and like we back up in the U-Haul truck, and everyone's like, "Yeah, what's up?" So what do you guys got for baits? There's no fucking baits here. We're like, open the U-Haul truck, and there's like bubblers going with fucking baits. Everyone's like, you guys are fucking out of your minds, right?
That's awesome, dude.
Dude, what a motherfucker. We had to like 5-gallon buckets of water into the boat, all the valves shut off so that all the baits were same water from Palm Beach into the tank of the boat, and we couldn't open it up till we were out into the ocean. And then we ran from Beaufort, North Carolina to Jacksonville to go fish for 40 minutes.
Did you still have a lot of bait, or did a lot of it die
No,
out?
man, but that's the kind of shit, you know, it's like at the next level kind of shit where it's like, how serious are you willing to take this?
Yeah.
What's the boundary? There are none. Okay, we're going to fish from North Carolina to Florida for 40 minutes to catch that fish to come back and win this tournament.
Right. I'd love to take some of the Florida baits and just try them here.
One thing, just now we're on the topic of baits in Florida and tanks and stuff. Joe brought a chemtainer up here.
Oh, good.
Well, I'm referring back to last year.
Yes.
Those things, holding pogies or anything, it is unbelievable how much better it is.
So there's something that's coming out. We've been working with a company, and they're working on doing that. It's going to be very similar. It's very exciting. I'll call you guys. I'll share it with you when it comes out. Or
cool, awesome.
You know, but those chemtainers, they sell them $400. They're about $400 a chemtainer. White, you got to drill them.
Yeah,
it's 250 gallons with the 2.4 coal bottoms.
Yeah,
dude, that shit.
It's unbelievable. It builds up that tiny little algae layer, and like you put pogies in a metal cage, you'll get 12 hours before they start rubbing their noses off and turning red. You put them in a chemtainer, like weeks and weeks, and they're still green back. You open it up and
they come back.
They're dark. Yeah, the holes reheal. It's insane.
For tournaments, this is kind of like a lot of guys they don't do it here, but down there, like the X factor with the baits, it's like you catch them like weeks before the tournament, and you're curing the baits. So what happens when you put the baits in the containers? Their tails shrink, they get extra slime, and they get trained to swim in a circle. They get a little softer, a little gummier, a little more hardy. But, you know,
The tail shrinking is interesting. So not having to use it as much,
Or why
maybe.
they tail? As if
Not
you hit-
fighting the current. Probably a lot of reasons.
they shrink in captivity. I mean, they get fat and real slimy.
Interesting.
It's going to be some interesting things that are going to happen this year.
which slows them down, right?
I always like to, one thing I definitely do is you have plenty of bait, especially if you're bass fishing, right? If you're bass fishing and you're using live pogies, clip the tails off.
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
the same.
Just not like in the meat, but just the actual bone.
The feather part.
Yeah, because then he's trying to move and he can't really move that fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mackerels too.
Yeah, we do a mackerel.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're fishing dead and live bait, and you got the bait just wants to swim and tangle all your shit. We clip, we clip the liveys, and we don't really do it with tuna fishing. Sometimes with like bluefish,
Yeah.
but
Or
That shit don't-
two bluefish
Doesn't really
floaters,
seem to matter.
Read the situation,
yeah,
That's awesome. I think we should
this could be bad. We could talk for like.
I think
8
we should
hours.
just go into what you have going on. Just kind of circle back to the lodge and the bed and breakfast, and
All right, so
talk
what-
about anything you want to promote and talk about.
So what we got is we got a little spot called the Gilded Crab. It's at its heart, it's an Airbnb. Okay. The guests that stay, our usual booking is a minimum of 5 days. The guests that are there for the 5 days have the option to add on all these fishing trips. So
This is in Bristol, right? This is in Rhode Island.
Bristol, Rhode Island. So there's a few times of the year where we kind of highlight, like these are the best times for bass. These are the best time for fluke. These are the best times for tuna. On the tuna side of things, I'm more partnered up with Robbie and Lou, just because of the limitations with my boat. But, doing most of the stuff that we're going to do inside of Narragansett Bay, going clamming, fluking, sea bass, lobstering, mansion tours, stuff like that. All the guests can add that stuff onto the trip. We have a chef. At night we do fly tying, gayutakus, poker.
That's really cool.
So it's kind of an all-inclusive deal. But at its heart, it's all about the house. So the house books 5 days. Everyone can add these things on as they want. Or, I always find that it's great when you have guests that come for a period of 5 days because, sometimes you might get a weather window. Sometimes you might not. What are your backup plans if you don't have a weather window?
Yeah.
And I also know that a lot of charter boat captains juggle, you get a customer, they come on the boat for the day, and now you're dealing with phone calls for the next charter for the next day while you're fishing with your other. It's just a clusterfuck in that short amount of time where you're managing a lot of different things, weather, cancellations, boat issues, drama, can't make it, whatever. We want to make it all about that experience where it's more about bring your family here, make them comfortable, give them something to do. What do you want to catch? Let's pick the best weather window.
Yeah.
So that's what we're all about there. And it's worked well for us. I mean, we were super happy with last year. This year, I think it's going to be even better. We have a booth at the RZA show, which is at the Providence Convention Center, the Rhode Island Fishing Show. I'll have the boat there, and we'll have a booth for the lodge. So we're really looking forward to that. That boat's just a badass little thing.
That thing is sweet.
Oh man, it's so cool, so unique, so different.
What length Ross boat is it?
So it's a 24, and I stretched it 30 inches in the back. But I have to say, for a boat that's just sub 30, I mean, I took that boat with my 10-year-old and my 75-year-old dad, just under 300 nautical miles on a 7-day trip. And we slept on the boat the whole time. So, I'm looking at other boats like these 34, pick your make and model of Down East boat. It's like 1-2 bunks in the front, a little more room in the helm, and you're in a 34-foot boat. I'm in a sub 30-foot boat. I got a bigger cockpit and a bigger, sleeping area than
And
most
you're
of
more
these other
economical.
boats. Yeah, I mean, I'm 3 gallons to the mile. 3 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Can get in some skinny water, can go in some deep stuff. So it's a super neat little boat. It's fun to be able to build it. Louis did the faux teak on it. and the transom and the helm pod.
That's cool.
And then we did all Humminbird electronics, which
that stuff's sweet. I've seen it a lot.
Yeah, a lot of these offshore guys don't understand, like, side scan technology is the way of the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
the
have
other thing,
a little boat.
It's like how many days that you're tuna fishing where you're sitting there and you're looking at your drift and you're like 0.1, 0.2, turn the trolling motor on and just like move the boat around.
Yeah.
You know, Robbie always says, he's like, I'm going to put this thing in the water. You watch, they're going to come and eat this prop.
Yeah.
You know, because it sounds like it's
totally.
like low frequency.
We put one of those Rodans on the line shy this past.
Game changer.
It's insane. We had,
game changer.
Speaking to the noise part, one of the first days, grease calm, like not a ripple, high sun, not the best tuna conditions. Poking around a couple spots, I end up, I'm like, decent bait here, middle bank. So I drop the spot lock and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden we see this minke whale, like, I don't know, half mile, quarter mile, you know, shows himself, makes his way to us, and just the woo of the trolling motor, 2 hours, I think, all around us, rolling his belly underneath the trolling motor. I'm like, if this doesn't make us sound and look like a whale, I mean, like, call me crazy, but that's what it seems like. Yeah. And sure as shit, that thing was fucking awesome tuna fishing this year for that reason, for not having to deal with wind against tide situations, for not having to deal with any sort of swing on the edge, like busy days, commercial days, you know, everyone shows up, you're kind of, you know, predicting what your swing's going to be, when you're going to be in the bite zone. With that thing, it's like,
you're in the bite zone all day.
The bite zone. Like the herring shifts 5 feet on the edge, like, let me putt up a little bit. All right, there it is. Back on it again. You're with it the whole day. It's insane. It really is.
That's where, in my opinion, that's like the next major paradigm shift in our industry.
Yeah.
It's more boats having trolling motors, more boats having side scan, and in the big format, more boats having sonar.
Sonar is insane.
It really is.
I mean, it is and it isn't. You know, you can have sonar, but if you're not in the fish, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But once you're on the fish, it is nice to know, did they fade left? Did they fade right?
Or are they steadily moving west to the next canyon over or whatever? You just can eyeball the whole biomass.
Yeah. But, you know.
Doesn't make you amazing just by having sonar.
No. Still got to have a group deck.
And you still have to master it.
Yeah.
You know, like anything. Like, you don't, it's not just plug and play. Like, you got to see what you're looking at, get used to what you're looking at, trust it.
Yeah.
You know, all those things. The bed and breakfast sounds sick. The lodge sounds awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Awesome idea.
We have our second one. We're just kind of waiting to launch that until we get through this season and figure out some logistics. Do we need another boat? There's just so many moving parts to it all. But at the end of the day, here's a great spot. Here are all the cool things you can do. Mm-hmm. You know, give me or Liz a call. We'd be happy to book some dates. Calendar's filling up quick. But it's an awesome place to bring a family.
Yeah.
You know, getting groups together. It sleeps 10. So a couple families can come at a time, and it's just awesome. You know, you can fish, you can not fish, you can do all the other fun stuff if you don't want to do it. But it's hopefully will be a heritage piece that we can pass down to the kids.
Yeah.
And they can kind of grow up learning how to be part of a community and give back to it. And also, you know, learn how to host, because I feel like just being a good host is a great quality in life.
Agreed. And adding that family feel and aspect to any fishery, like we've all been lucky enough to travel a lot of different places. But the places, for me anyway, that like really, really stick out in my mind are the places where when you go there, like you're part of it. Like you're not, you know, you're not a guest, like you're a part of the crew. You're making the decisions on whether, you're understanding why you can and can't fish here, because it's just, you're part of the whole entire experience. You're not just an angler.
Right.
You know, like PEI, the first thing most people say when they come back from that place isn't the fishing was amazing. It's the people were amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
the food.
That's really, you know, maintaining that consistency and like running with that idea behind your business, I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
You know,
It's been a fun adventure.
it's cool.
So I'm all in on it.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
love to have you guys up there.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I've never fished down Rhode Island and
No.
that neck of the woods. I haven't caught. We caught them last year, but I personally haven't landed a 50-pound striper in my life.
They're there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Back bait. How do you want to catch them? Kite, plug,
That'd be fun.
live bait, spoon.
I love kite. We have kite fish for bass up here quite a bit. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is.
You gotta
It's tricky by where we live just because of the birds. The ospreys are so bad.
Yeah.
Those bald eagles.
You got to be like out next to the 3-mile line, like offshore bass, for it to really be effective. You try to do it in the rocks, you're just gonna get frustrated.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anything else?
Anything else you want to plug?
Want to plug or?
Nah, man. I mean, you know, come down and see us at the lodge. We're open for business. We're super stoked to have this year. We've got a lot of huge upgrades. You know, media room this year,
That's cool.
which is gonna be super awesome. And you know, would love to have you guys. And you know, I'm easy to find on social. Seth Funt on Instagram. It's probably the best way to find me. And if you have questions or if you're headed to a location, you want some recommendations on some good spots to hit, or you know, any questions about the boat, the lodge, or anything we discussed today, feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find. And other than that, you know, it's always great just meeting new people and
Hell yeah.
talking about what we love.
Absolutely, man.
Keep it up. I mean, you guys rock.
Thanks. Yeah, no, we appreciate it. It's been a lot of
We met
fun
some
doing
awesome
it.
people.
It's our pace too. The schedules, you know, fits the charter fishing lifestyle and schedule. So it's, you know, we love like sharing other people's stories. And even though you say I'm not an educator, you really are an educator. You know, you just don't consider yourself one. But
Speaking of
that
educating,
aspect of it's fun.
What other shows are you doing this winter? Like seminar type things. Are you doing any? I know you did Damon's last year.
I didn't do Damon's.
You were,
you were at
there.
Damon's.
Yeah, you're at
I showed up, dropped off some leaders, and split.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Damon. So that's a really good question. I mean,
Or
I had
maybe
the
you're
road-
not. Maybe you're just chilling.
the RZA show is definitely going to be, you know, this year is going to be all about the lodge. This year, for sure, is going to be all about
Yeah.
building that up to the next level, because
Yeah.
I think there's such a need in our community for more stuff like that. I did that trip to PEI, and when I went up there, it was like chef, house, but everything was taken care of. It was just such a mind blower. I was just like, man, this would be so cool, but I would want to. The only way I'm going to get away with this is if I can bring my wife and kids.
Yeah.
So this year is really going to be mostly about doing stuff to promote that. And I think, you know, the RZA show, definitely all the boat shows, you know, the big one, Miami, Palm Beach, and then I'll do this iCast. And who knows? You know, we'll see. I mean, there's a couple of other
You're
cats
busy.
that I run
You
with.
are doing quite a few little shows then.
Yeah, you know, another big responsibility for me is just being field tester for Shimano. So all their new product coming down the line is they give me the product and it's like, try and destroy this.
Yeah.
And so we're always trying to put that equipment in unique environments where we can fuck it up to figure out if there's design
How to
flaws.
break it.
Yeah.
You know?
We have a great fishery for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
big fish, diverse, casting, jigging, trolling, pretty much the whole arsenal you're putting to the test.
Yeah. In a
Fish
short
are-
amount of time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fish aren't changing in size. The tackle is though.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
getting smaller,
Smaller
and
and
smaller,
smaller
and
and
the fish are staying.
I'll stick with my
800 pounds.
I'll stick with my 130s. Thank you very much. I don't want no business, no part of a 100+ incher on anything less than that anymore. I did it one time. That's it.
Everyone says that.
It is
cool
fun the
one
one time.
If
man,
you
talk
like
about-
your feet
and
put
your
into
knees,
5-gallon buckets of concrete, and then you just want to like be in a wall sit for like 3 hours, and then like try to walk around with those buckets of concrete in your feet, like that's the best comparison, I think. Like the pinwheels at the end on a big tuna and stand up, no thanks.
yeah, you're talking like 600 plus.
Yeah, I'm talking like a real
Yeah.
one, you know.
Fuck that.
We get so many people like, I mean, it's understandable, you know, like
They want to jig one?
yeah, or like they're just very, you know, by the book IGFA, like, why are you fighting them out of the rod holder? Like, that's not a real way to fight them. Like, okay.
Fight one, stand up, then come talk
When
to
the
me.
rod holder complains about fighting them, you know it's a substantial animal because it's making noises the whole time that it's scaring you, you know?
120, 150, 200. That's kind of like my favorite size.
Same. 70 inches on like 50 class stand up on live posts.
So much fun. Awesome.
Yeah.
Giant tuna on spin tackle. First of all, it's very, very taxing on your body. But second of all, it's not good for the fish.
Yeah. No.
Those fish don't have a high mortality rate.
No.
Not when they're fighting 4 or 5. It's just not. It's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
Not that long.
No. You shouldn't have to fight the fish for more than an hour or 2 at max.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Don't care how big it is.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing it for sport.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy.
Even
and he's
commercially, like if you're not done in 90
if he's on the
minutes,
radio and he's like,
Or close.
we're 3 hours into this thing, I'm like, you don't know what you're doing.
yeah. And in very, very, very rare circumstances, you'll get one that's just like hooked in the tail or, you know, something nuts where it's just like totally unpredictable. But for the most part, it should not be this 2 hour,
45 to
28
minutes.
pounds of drag, you know, bullshit.
52 pounds. Let him.
Yeah, I agree with you. 52 is
Same.
a sweet spot.
Yeah. Break them.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Seth, it was awesome
Yes,
to have
it was
you
fun.
here. Thank you for driving up.
We'll do it again.
I'm glad we finally all got to like actually have a conversation. It wasn't like a 5-minute like hi bye.
It's way better to do it in person. I think there's way more
Agreed.
human element to the experience when you can talk to people face to face.
Yeah.
Totally.
So if you ever get the chance and you're ever blessed to be invited up here to hang out with these two dudes, it's a great drive. It's a great spot. It's a great conversation. It's just everything's next level when you're face to face. So
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
gentlemen,
that.
thank you. It's
Yeah,
fucking
thanks.
awesome.
Thank you, man. With that said, we're going to leave you on our father's 3 words of fishing wisdom. Remember, you can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last one, you'll just have to keep listening. Stay tight, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast. If you would like more information about today's guest, our episode, and show sponsors, or if you want to order hats and apparel, please visit our website at SeaBrosFishing.com. You can also stay up to date on all the latest SeaBros Fishing content and podcast episodes by following us on Instagram at SeaBros Fishing. Finally, to book a trip with us through our family-run charter fishing company, please visit massbayguides.com or see our latest updates and fishing reports by following Mass Bay Guides on Instagram and Facebook.